Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the stream. My name is Josh. Today is October 27th, 2022, and glad you're here. So, we have one thing we're actually going to go over today. Today, we're going to be very focused. We're going to be very precise on what we're doing. 2 days ago, or 2 nights ago, I should say, there was the Pennsylvania Senate races. Now, if you know anything, the midterms are rapidly approaching. November 8th, go out and vote. And one of the key races to be watching on that night and the preceding day or two, probably, is going to be the Pennsylvania Senate race between Democrat John Fetterman and Republican candidate Dr. Mehmet Oz. If you've never seen that guy, it's the guy you've seen on TV a million times, so you have seen him, fun fact. But yeah, they had a debate. I've not heard great things, but I have not pre-watched because we don't do that here. So let's just go right into it. Let's all experience this together, shall we? Let's go.
A Senate race, now a spectacle.
He chose money over his conscience.
My opponent, John Fetterman, by his own admission, grew up in luxury and privilege.
Insult stealing the spotlight while voters want a voice on the issues.
I'm thinking about women's rights.
Unity of the people.
I'm looking for civility.
I think public health is most important.
Our leaders are not leaders at all.
Tonight, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz face-to-face for
God, the American electorate. Oh my goodness.
the first and only time. Both men looking to prove they have what it takes to represent the people of Pennsylvania.
Send Dr. Oz back to New Jersey.
I stand for Pennsylvania values, and I'm proud of it.
Live from the ABC 27 studios in Harrisburg, this is the Pennsylvania US.
So yeah, this debate, the reason why they said first and only is mainly because this debate the Oz campaign since Fetterman's stroke has been trying to get him on stage. I mean, just in general, I mean, they were supposed to have a debate, but obviously with Fetterman's stroke, that's going to, that's already going to inhibit his debate performance. And I know, based on what I've heard, it sounds like that's basically exactly what happened. But yeah, either way, this is the debate that they've been wanting to have. So, the Fetterman campaign, I believe, was kind of really wishy-washy about it. So, we'll see if that, if finally biting the bullet and showing up on stage is going to pay off. It has sounded like it hasn't. But we'll see. We'll certainly see.
Thank you, Leland. Good evening, candidates who moments ago just met for the first time. We're happy to have you here. Welcome to our audience watching at home, on air, online, and on News Nation. And we encourage everyone who is watching tonight to share your thoughts on social media.
Well, welcome. You're watching here on air, not live at all.
PA Senate debate.
And you may notice these large monitors that are behind us. This is part of our closed captioning system. It was requested by John Fetterman to help him process the questions that we are asking him tonight, and approved by both campaigns, and both candidates can see the monitors.
One of the screens will show only the questions being asked tonight. The second screen will caption the questions and responses.
Okay, that makes sense.
We have live, experienced captioners in studio to ensure we are as accurate as possible in what's sure to be a fast-paced
I was just wondering too. I was like, if this is AI, then that's gonna be fucked after a point.
The captions you see are not tied to the
okay.
captions that the candidates will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that, let's get started. Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and one term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm
not
also
wrong.
having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show. He's done that during his campaign about lying about our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush 2 words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for.
So what I like about John Fetterman, just off the bat, I want to say, in watching his kind of campaign and hearing some of his rhetoric over the last couple of years, as he's kind of moved up that political ladder, in Pennsylvania politics at least, the guy is a average ass guy, like the most average ass guy you can get. A lot has been spoken of his like pro marijuana stance, which is you'd have to prove to me that's inherently bad. I mean, marijuana has not been shown to have any long-lasting, long-term damaging effects. So, dude likes to smoke a bit of weed. So what? But yeah. Overall, is Paul? From what I understand, he's pretty populist, but also very left-wing. As far as I know, he's in favor of Medicare for all and a few other things that are more along the lines of like Bernie-style Democrats. So overall, I like John Fetterman. Oz, I've never actually heard any of his stances. I mean, I know he's been claiming all of the generic Republican positions, but that doesn't really tell me that much. I mean, he's obviously a grifter. He doesn't actually believe in any of this stuff, but he wants to make some money and he wants to get some prestige. So, you go for a Senate seat.
Everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down that needs to get back up. Fighting for.
And by the way, the Republican Party will absolutely take people
also got knocked down
who are grifters if it gets them ahead.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much, Mr. Oz. You are a doctor, a businessman, and television personality. But this is your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
Imagine not having like any political experience, just kind of being a talking head on TV, and then thinking like, oh yeah, I should totally run for the Senate and be a representative of millions of people in a state that I rarely spend time in.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions. I want to bring civility, balance, all the things that you want to see because you've been telling it to me on the campaign trail. And by doing that, we can bring us together in a way that has not been done of late.
Being vague, very smart.
Talking to each other. John Fetterman takes everything to an extreme, and those extreme positions hurt us all. Let's take crime as an example because it's been such a big problem. Maureen Faulkner accompanied me today to the studio. You know that her husband was a police officer in Philadelphia, was brutally murdered. John Fetterman, during this crime wave, has been trying to get as many murderers convicted and sentenced to life in prison out of jail as possible, including people who are similar to the man who murdered her husband. He does it without the rest of the parole board agreeing. He's doing it without the families on board. These radical positions extend beyond crime to...
It's almost like people who are in jail also have rights. Like I understand, like this is one of those aspects of our criminal justice system where it's based on retribution and not on reassimilation and rehabilitation. That's what Oz is arguing for, is retribution, not rehabilitation.
Wanting to legalize all drugs, to open the border, to raising our taxes. I want Washington to be civil again. Well, you need it to be less radical. John Fetterman, unfortunately, would bring that.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, gentlemen, on to the economy.
And also less radical.
Pennsylvanians are struggling to put food on the table.
These guys will say like less radical, but then have like no real position. So it's like, they're drawing the line of like nothing or radicalism. And that's kind of the line that they draw.
For voters, 39% of them listed that as the top issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz, you have blamed President Biden and reckless Democratic
Surprised he
spending
doesn't
for the
insist on saying
inflation
Dr.
crisis.
Oz.
But voters would like to hear your specific plan to cut spending. Please explain in 60 seconds.
Well, if you ask the U.S. government, they'll tell you they have 4% waste and fraud. Now, I've traveled over the Commonwealth and spoken to countless people. There was a lady in Beaver County at a county fair who told me with fear in her heart that she wanted to provide food for her son's highly nutritious chicken she couldn't afford it anymore. That's a big problem. If we've got 4% waste and fraud, we ought to be able to take care of that. John Fetterman's, however, response continually is to raise taxes. He raised taxes as mayor. He tried to raise taxes as lieutenant governor, 46%. That's a big tax rate. He supported Joe Biden's...
I'm actually not really sure, but you can't just say fraud and not say what kind of fraud. Because if you say fraud around me, I make the assumption that you're thinking tax avoidance and tax fraud, which you would fight that by raising taxes and being more aggressive against large tax debtors.
Recent tax rate increase, and he's done that without paying his own taxes 67 times. I'll say that again. He hasn't paid his own taxes 67 times, but he's raising mine and yours. Those are radical positions. They're extreme. They're out of touch with the values of Pennsylvanians. And I can make the difficult decisions, as you do in the operating room as a surgeon. I'll make them cutting our budget as well to make sure we don't have to raise taxes on a population already desperately in pain from the high inflation rate.
Mr. Fetterman, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal. He has specifically said you have not paid your taxes and that you want to raise taxes on Americans. How do you respond?
Absolutely. The Oz rule, of course, he's lying. It was helping 2 students 17 years ago to help them, buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got paid, and it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continuing with you, Mr. Fetterman, your opponent has criticized Democratic spending.
I find it really funny. I've seen a few of these debates. These are never this go 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 go. I'll give him this. This is brisk.
Overspent, and if so, where do you think spending should be cut? You have 60 seconds.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about inflation. Right now, because it's a tax on working families. And Dr. Oz can't possibly understand what that is like. He has 10 gigantic mansions.
How's it going, Mr.
We must push back against corporate greed.
Today we're just doing this debate. This is an hour long. We're just going to focus on this, and then there's a focus group afterwards. So I kind of normally I do a couple topics, but today I really want to focus in on this one.
We must make sure that we're also pushing back against price gouging as well, too. We also be able to make more in Pennsylvania, make more in America. When he had a choice to make his merchandise, the Oz label is on, he made it all in China. Who can you believe that can fight against inflation and pushing back against corporate greed or somebody that is choosing working in China versus over American workers?
All right, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal to his comments that you have been making things in China. Mr. Oz.
I've been trying to talk about policy issues with the people of Pennsylvania. As a doctor, I listen to their ideas, and I want to talk about them. When John Fetterman brings up houses, the irony is he didn't pay for his own house. He got it for $1 from his sister, and he hasn't been able to earn a living on his own. He's lived off his parents. So this
is that if someone sells you a house for $1, is that illegal or something? I'm sorry, I forgot the part where that was illegal.
It's not a topic that we should be debating on the stage. We should be talking about crime and inflation, issues that are hurting Pennsylvanians that they're talking about at their kitchen table.
No, that's he got his Pennsylvania house from his own inlays from $1.
Mr. Fetterman, we have to continue on. We'll continue on with a question, a follow-up question.
So also, I want to push back on. So earlier in the debate, Oz mentioned that Fetterman wants to release murder victims, or sorry, people who committed murder out of prison early. And yeah, it's really just a let's see, let me see if I can find the quote. Yeah, here we go. This is what I want. Fetterman cited a report from Philadelphia lawyers for social equity. Quote, unlike almost every other crime, second-degree murder, often called felony murder, does not describe an act but a situation. It applies when someone dies related to a felony. In Pennsylvania, that felony is defined as committing, attempting to commit, or fleeing an act of robbery, burglary, kidnapping, rape, or arson. These folks are not Hannibal Lecter. These are individuals that may have been involved in a bad situation, terrible mistake, or something that had no idea what was going on over time. So yeah, I mean, this is another one of those where obviously political messaging and political strategy runs up against honest to God facts. But I just wanted to push back on that because that sounded kind of ridiculous. And yeah, definitely is.
To you, Mr. Oz. This one is just for you. You tweeted in August that you will never stop fighting to lower gas prices for Pennsylvanians. Does that include supporting a suspension of the federal gas tax? You have 30 seconds.
I'm supportive of reducing taxes, but we want to be thoughtful about the long-term game plan.
I would certainly agree that living with one's parents doesn't look great. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with it, especially today. In today's world where a lot of people live with their parents because the economics of today just kind of suck for younger people and kind of everybody broadly. But yeah, that would stick a lot more, I definitely think.
gas taxes down, and frankly, all energy prices down. I have gone around the Commonwealth. I've witnessed people say, I'm not going on vacation this year because I can't afford to pay to take my trailer to the campground. They can't even get there. What we have to do is ensure that we don't have increased inflation, and the best way to do that is reduce gas prices. John Fetterman has gone after the energy industry, called it a stain on Pennsylvania, and argued we have to ban fracking. That is disconnected from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. We will get to the issue of fracking later on in this discussion, but meantime, turning back to you, Mr. Fetterman, for a follow-up. In an op-ed for the Wilkes-Barre Times Leader, you wrote, quote, "It is time we crack down on the big price gouging corporations that are making record profits while jacking up prices for all of us." How do you plan to do this, sir? You mentioned going after price gouging corporations. How do you plan to do this? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. We have to keep pushing back on that. And he would never make that choice to fight for families here in Pennsylvania. You know, he has never met an oil company that he doesn't swipe right about. You know, he has never been able to stand up for working families all across Pennsylvania. You know, we must push back. Inflation has hurt Americans and Pennsylvania's families, and it has given the oil companies record profits.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, as the war in Ukraine has kind of gone on a lot longer than people expect, and as inflation has risen, there are obviously things that you can do about inflation of prices going up. One of those is to seize some of that land and start to deprivatize some of those areas, or you could charge the fracking and oil companies a lot more money to you can incentivize them to get out prices. Because at the end of the day, the oil companies are the ones picking the price, and the government is supposed to be there to rein some of that in. But since, I talked about this before with Biden, since not deprivatization. What am I thinking the word is? Oh God. I hate when I forget the exact term I'm looking for. My point is these are public lands that are being extracted for oil, which means it's the people's oil. We see this in Alaska a lot. There's a program where any oil extraction is then paid out. There is a percentage of that's paid out to Alaska residents, and that sort of program keeps people. At the end of the day, it's their land, and these oil companies are fracking it or pulling oil out of it and then selling it to us at inflated prices when they don't necessarily need to. All Biden would have to do is see some of those companies say, nope, you're going to give us the price we're going to give, or you're not going to do business in America. But unfortunately for Biden, that's not something that he can do. That's not something within his, I think, economic worldview. So obviously he's not going to do that. Fetterman, on the other hand, has no problem with raising their taxes, doing other things to squeeze them, to incentivize them to lower the prices a bit.
Mr. Fetterman, turning to the next issue, Dennis.
The minimum wage in Pennsylvania and at the national level currently sits at $7.25 an hour and has not been increased since 2009.
Jesus.
Each of our neighboring states has raised minimum wages. You see them there on your screen, including New Jersey at $13 an hour and West Virginia at $8.75. But Pennsylvania has not followed suit. The first.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a There's a corruption problem in the U.S. in terms of our government. What is that? $7.25? How much does that get you? I'm kind of curious. Actually, here, I'll do this while we'll come back to this.
States has raised minimum wages. You see them there on your screen, including New Jersey at $13 an hour and West Virginia at $8.75.
West Virginia.
But Pennsylvania has not followed suit. The first question is for you, Mr. Fetterman. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at $7.25 an hour. And how can a man, with 10 gigantic mansions, has...
I remember when I used to make $7.25 an hour. $7.25 an hour on a good week. On if I got 2 weeks of 30 hours, right? At $7.25, a good 2 weeks of work might get me $300 to $400 after 2 weeks of work. That is pathetic. I remember I used to live in Northern Virginia. That's where I'm originally from. There is no way back then that you could afford any kind of apartment, any kind of living situation on $150, maybe $200 a week, because everything's, at least going to be $1,000. You don't even make $1,000 within a month worth of working. And also the reason why I say 30 hours is because back, at least when I was working, because of Obamacare and a lot of companies didn't want to pay for people's health care, which was a choice by them, they wouldn't allow people to work over 30 hours because then they would have to, they were required by law to give them health care. So then we were all kind of fucked at like 29 hours.
Anybody imagine a single mom trying with 2 children, trying to raise with them, realizing making $31,000 a year, $15 an hour. I believe every work has dignity and every paycheck must have dignity in it as well. True, I've always supported a living wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Fetterman. What do you say to small business owners who have told us that if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour, it would put them out of business? You have 30 seconds.
No, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full-time, you should be able to live in dignity as well, true. And I believe they haven't have any businesses being you can't have businesses being subsidized by not paying individuals that just simply can't afford to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, turning to you. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or...
So let's take a look real quick. So, oh God, okay. On 7/25, you will make about 15 grand. Maybe, you do a couple extra hours, maybe, less than 20, right? Also, let's take a look really quickly. This is not any kind of scientific study, but if we want to look, you can see some of these rent prices. Not this is sorted low to high. Let me make sure I don't have any of these. None of these filters on, right? Okay, good. No. Just Pennsylvania. Fine. Give me Pittsburgh. Fuck it. Actually, I know where to go. How do you spell Blairsville? No, that's Jersey. No. That's not what let's just do Pittsburgh. Wow, this site is ass. There we go. Okay. Let's take a look. Low to high. You could get one. There's 1, 2, 3. Get a couple of these. If you're making, like I said, if you're making 150, maybe 200 over a week, you're left with maybe a couple $100 in some of these really shitty apartments, probably, to get by on. You also have to factor in, you have to buy food, you have to buy, there's always utilities, all of the things that have to go into these sorts of things. And you look around and you're like, all right, there's a few places, but then you have to wonder what neighborhoods are they in, what kind of quality the buildings are in. For $700 a month. I don't know about you, but this doesn't look this building does not look like it's worth $700 a month. Plus probably utilities. Anyway.
Or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with a hotel worker actually here in Harrisburg a few months ago, and he was telling me how hard it was to live on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that, but John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents. He's not really cognizant of the real challenges of business owners who've got to balance.
Wait a minute. Did you just say 15's too little?
That just simply can't pay to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, turning to you. Again. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with a...
It hasn't. It's still $7.25. That's just a lie.
A hotel worker actually here in Harrisburg a few months ago, and he was telling me how hard it was to live on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John...
Geez, so it's almost 15 is the compromise.
Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that, but John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents. He's not really cognizant of the real challenges of business owners who've got to balance that with employees. We have a solution. And John, you didn't answer the question. You can't put businesses out of commission in order to pay more.
So unfortunately, this is one of those things that businesses will always say. I've worked for multiple small businesses. Every single business owner I have ever talked to has always complained about wages, has always complained about money, have always complained about how hard it is for them to get by. Meanwhile, their staff can hardly pay rent, their staff can't go on vacations, and at the same time, they're buying new cars, They're buying like new equipment for the business, which by the way, they can write off on taxes. And they're going on vacations. So like this whole business owners have it tough thing, I've heard enough of it. I'm so sick and tired of that, because there's no way to verify that in an objective way. We have statistics on the way people live when they're on minimum wage and when they're on waged labor, and how their lives reflect that kind of those kind of wages, what those wages have an impact on their quality of life. We don't have any of those metrics on business owners, because it's in business owners' best interest to be as dishonest as they can get away with. The same way it's in their best interest to pay any of their workers as little as they can to get as much work out of them as possible. That's how this game works.
Wages, because the wages will go to zero, which is John Fetterman's radical plan if you really follow it to conclusion. Here's what I would do. We have one of the richest energy states in the country. I believe if we could unleash the energy beneath our feet here in Pennsylvania, there'd be plenty of money to go around. We'd have increased wages, a more reason for students.
But the staff has the choice to leave, don't they? If they educate it. Well, okay, so let's talk about education really quickly. Is college affordable? We both know that it's really not. There's a reason why we had to forgive a bunch of student loans recently. So college isn't really the same option. Also, business owners don't. Not all business owners. Most of them that I know did not go to college, did not get MBAs. They all just kind of cobble it all together and make their business work. Education is not the problem. The problem is that there's not enough jobs. If there are 10 jobs in a town and all of them agree that they won't, compete in terms of wages, then you have no choice as a worker unless you move out of the area, unless you start your own business. But to start your own business, you have to have startup money. To have startup money, you have to work somewhere that pays you enough that you can have extra money to set aside while also, while also paying all of your bills. And instead of, boozing around every weekend, I mean, you're essentially asking people to not live their lives for an opportunity to get a fair wage, which I don't think is fair. I don't think I should never get to go out just so I can just to make my wage not arbitrary, inorganically a good wage. Any wage, $1 an hour is good if you never spend it. But that's not living, that's surviving then.
Students to take vocational class.
So yes, being a tradesman is like half the price, and like being a tradesman is good. I think being tradesman should be more encouraged, but it's not a solution for broad society. Not everybody can be an electrician. Not everybody can be a carpenter. Not everyone can do these things. Like, as much as I do think tradesmanship and stuff like that does need to be, I think, a little bit more attainable for people, and I think a little bit easier for people to get started in. It's not a broad, like, at the end of the day, college is the thing that gets you into those higher wages. Most tradesman jobs will get you a better wage quicker, but your ceiling's a lot lower. Whereas most college degrees, you're kind of gambling that, like, in the short run, you're going to have a lot of debt and you might not get the wage you want to get, but in the long run, it'll pay off with higher wages later. That doesn't always pay off. At the end of the day, education, I think, should not be as much of a gamble. It's not in other countries. You get your education because you want to get your education, not because you're gambling on some job.
Classes to be able to learn trades, which I'm strongly supportive of. We'd also be able to pipe that gas and improve our economy and reduce inflation.
So my only argument, Johnny, I want to say also, I really appreciate you making decent points. I've had people in here who don't make the best of points, and I like how coherent you are. I think people are allowed to complain about bad situations, and also individual people is not who we're talking about. It's not really who we're concerned about. This problem of wages is not just systemic, but it's broad amongst millions upon millions upon millions of Americans. Like, your Joe Schmo dude who works at like the Pizza Hut is not who we're like. That might be the individual we're kind of like thinking about, but what we're thinking about is like millions of those Joe Schmoes at Pizza Huts. It's a problem that needs a much, much, much bigger fix because too many people are getting stuck in that position. And again, like, you shouldn't have to work 2 jobs. I say that in like if you want to work 2 jobs, if that's something you like, you really want to like buy a house in like 10 years. So you took 5 years of that and you were like, I'm going to work 2 jobs and work really hard, put my nose to the grindstone or whatever. That's one thing. But people aren't working 2 jobs because they want to and because they want to get ahead. They're working 2 jobs because they have to, and that's to keep them afloat. It's the difference between swimming in a still water and swimming in a riptide.
A plan that works, and it's humble enough that I can say broadly.
Thank you. I want to give you, Mr. Fetterman, a 15-second follow-up to what he just said about you.
No, again, it's remarkable. He hasn't really had any answer that he actually had about that in his. He doesn't want to talk about.
So $13 an hour is, how much is that a month? Let's do some math. Can I? Oh, I don't think I can show you my calculator. It's on here. Calculator. Let's see. 13. Let's pretend they're doing 40 hours. Nope, that's 404. 40 hours. Let's see. Times 2. You're looking at $1,000. 1,040. What's it called? You're looking at 1,040 per week. Which, oh no, I'm sorry. That's every 2 weeks. You're looking at 1,040, which you're probably gonna have to take out. I'd say anywhere to, actually, one second. Let me make sure I did my math correctly because I'm awful at math. Where's the reset button? This damn thing. See? I don't know what the reset button is on the, what's it called? Annually. So yeah, also I wouldn't get too wrapped up on 2704 because that number's not going to stick. Just because of taxes. What did you say? 13 times 40. Oh. Okay, so I was right. Okay, cool. Times 2 and 40. And on that, what is that? That's about a 12. You're making over 20. You're paying a 12% rate. 12, that's 24. Yeah, you're making probably somewhere in the high 800s every 2 weeks, which nets you maybe around like 1,600 over the course of an entire month. And if we'd like to, let's look at Utah. Stop it. Rent. Christ above. I just want average. Okay. Let's try this. Utah rent average. Let's take a look. Salt Lake City. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Oh, stop it. I don't want that. 2021 fair market rent in Utah rent data. Here we go. Yeah, so you're looking at, yeah, so these are going to be your rent prices against, what did that number I gave you? Around 800 or so every 2 weeks. So you figure if you're smart, you're going to probably take out about half of your rent. So if your rent is about $600, if you rent $600, that's going to be $300 out of both your paychecks. So, you know, your paychecks go from around 800 or so down to around 500 or so. If you have, you know, internet, that's another 100. Take 50 out of that, 50 out of each of them. Now you're down to 450. If you have a car, you probably have a car payment. Let's pretend that that's maybe, I pay about 200. I pay about like 160. So let's say like 150. That's another 75 out of your paycheck. Now you're looking at around, what did I say? 450. You're looking around like 375. As like the point is as all of these bills start to rack up, including your rent, $13 an hour isn't going to get you very far. I was living in a studio apartment that would cost me $800 on a $15, I think maybe $16 on the second year wage, and for the most part, I had a couple $100 for both of my 2 weeks. I had maybe $100 to $200 to do anything. So that's like if I wanted to buy a video game, if I wanted to go out, if I wanted to do, you know, there weren't really if I wanted to go visit family, that was out of the question. So it's, you know, living on these rent prices, you know, you can always find these like, oh, just live really minimally. But again, that's not really, we can't tell everybody to live minimally and to like, you know, live at these very bare, very small living spaces and living these, quite frankly, small lives. People like to go out, and people should be able to go out. We make more than enough money in this country that people should be able to go out. So there's no real reason why, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I wish my rent here in Colorado was $700. That'd be amazing. But I also make around closer to like $20, moving on to like closer to 25. So like that would be amazing for me. But again, it's all about the balance. And like when you factor in that rent, if you're taking that money out, you're looking like, you can't save on $200, every 2 weeks, every, $400 over the course of a month. Some of that you get to save, but like the rest of it is like, oh, that's for groceries. That's for, that's for going out if you ever want to go out. God forbid you get a girlfriend. Also, these kinds of wages is what exacerbates the relationship issues that we have in this country. There was the last stream I talked a little bit just at the end about the crisis of kind of men not having sex, and like just in general, everyone's having a lot less sex and having a lot less long-term meaningful relationships. And economics is a big part of that. If you can't take somebody that you're maybe like attracted to onto, if you economically cannot take them on a good date, you go on a good date, that's going to cost you like 30, maybe $50 on one meal. And then you got to worry about the rest of your meals for the rest of the week. You're going to be incentivized to not kind of participate in the relationship market. So a lot of the like wages, when it comes down to it, impacts so many different things. And like, I understand where it's like, oh, well, maybe you need to tighten your belt strap or whatever it is. That I remember there's like a saying, I forget what it is, but like, at the end of the day, it's the government's job to kind of look at these meta problems that millions of people are having and come up with a solution that best fits the most amount of people. And wage increases is what we do for that. Obviously, you can talk to your friend who works at a shitty job and tell them, hey, maybe get a different job. Hey, maybe like go somewhere and argue for a better wage. But, at the end of the day, those are individual. Those are like individual problems with individual solutions. What this is a broad solution for millions of people. Let's see. Yeah, like people can always do better. I'm certainly not disagreeing with you on that, Johnny. I'm just it's one of those things where we can tell everybody to just be better, but we've always told people to be better, and the situation hasn't gotten worse, or hasn't gotten better, I should say. At the end of the day, some businesses are still like, I still know places in Colorado that pay $12.45, and the person who runs that business lives a very comfortable life, very comfortable, but their staff makes, they make like nothing. They make pittance. So, and I'm sure they have rent and everything else. So, it's one of those things. But anyway, all that aside, I really appreciate it. You've distracted me, but I appreciate the distraction. So let's keep going.
Having somebody having a living wage and having somebody able to survive. Again.
This is also why I said that I'm just going to do this today, because I had a feeling that there would be at least mild asides to look at broader issues. But still appreciate it.
Yeah.
Always. And I want to come back to you now, Mr. Oz, for a quick follow-up. What do you say to those Pennsylvanians that he just spoke of that are trying to survive on $7.25 an hour, which is less than all of our neighbors? You have 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't think you should have to survive on $7.25 an hour. I want the minimum wage up as high as it can go. I want to highlight that I have an agenda for prosperity, unlike John Fetterman. I want us all getting paid a lot more than $15.
Sure.
And I answered your question directly in a way that would preserve business owners, job creators, so they thrive, and we'd have lots more employees entering the workforce and then prospering, getting paid $25, $35, $45 an hour. But we're never going to get there if we don't unleash our energy. And John Fetterman's stubbornness on calling it a stain on Pennsylvania is an insult to those workers.
To be clear, you said you want people making a lot more, but that's not through a federal law of minimum wage. That's through market forces?
Market forces should drive it up anyway, and it's already done that.
Thank you.
You should be able to get paid much more than $15 an hour.
Thank you.
Should. Again, like, this is one of those things where, like, also at the end of the day, what Oz is arguing is like, hey, just kind of let the market eventually get to that point. When at the end of the day, people need higher wages now. The problem is right now, not 5 years down the road. 5 years down the road, $15 won't be enough. We see that, especially here in Colorado. There was legislation put forward to raise our minimum wage to 15, but as that has moved up and as businesses have kind of adjusted to that, and as more specifically, rental companies and other landlords have seen those wages go up, they've simply outpaced it. It now making 15 an hour doesn't really mean anything because it's moved too slow, and there's been too much of a focus on keeping business owners in the same position and in the same bargaining position that they've always been. Same with landlords.
Lisa.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Another big issue for voters is abortion. Mr. Oz, we will begin with you. You say that you're pro-life, but you do support abortion exceptions in the cases of rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Aside from those three exceptions, should abortion be banned in America? 60 seconds.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions.
So Johnny, I would also say if you're a small business owner, you should be paying those higher minimum wages. But again, that would be the government's role to step in and also subsidize those wages, because we already do that for businesses like Walmart, like Target, stuff like that. We already subsidize those wages through public policy. So people who don't make, let's say, if you're working at Walmart, you make a really low wage, and you make low enough that you can get food stamps, right? That is money we've set aside as a society for people who don't make enough to buy food, right? So we're covering people so that they can buy food, so that they have enough energy to go in and make money for Walmart. Walmart doesn't pay them enough to do that. We are subsidizing their low wages with public policy. What we should be doing is forcing those larger corporations who absolutely can pay those prices to raise their wages, which also everybody should have to do that, but then subsidize smaller businesses and make sure that they have no issue paying those wages. I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, it's all about, it kind of goes back to a little bit what you said earlier. We do have corruption in a lot of places in our government. So that's also why that solution doesn't come up, why that's something that Biden and most centrist, and quite frankly, they're kind of right-leaning, in my opinion, Democrats won't ever push for. It's not in their economic, it's not like a thing that exists in their economic realities. And somebody like Dr. Oz, who's a Republican, and every Republican like him, would never take that plan, ever. They would certainly never. It's only people like John Fetterman who would actually enact something like that, is more what I'm saying.
As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves. Contrast that with my opponent, John Fetterman, who on this debate stage said that he would demand federally mandated rules for all states. They'd have.
Right, I get what you mean. It's just, at the end, that's why I said subsidization by the government. Like, at the end of the day, that's how you would get that covered, is you support. All these guys talk about supporting small businesses and then do nothing for it. We had the PPP loans and stuff like that, and a lot of big businesses got those. Those should have been reserved for businesses that are incredibly small, to keep them afloat, but not only that, but prop them up. I want more small businesses. And if that means that we have to send more money to those small businesses, I'm fine with that. As long as they're paying, as long as they're transferring that over to workers and allowing them to live decent lives. Allowing them to also one day maybe become business owners themselves.
To follow that would allow abortion at 38 weeks on the delivery table, and he would force it to be subsidized by taxpayers across the country. On this debate stage said that he would demand federally mandated rules for all states they'd have to follow that would allow abortion at 38 weeks on the delivery table.
I'm just going to go back because I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying.
Should abortion be banned in America?
There we go.
You said you want people making a lot more, but that's not.
As we will begin with you. You say that you're pro-life, but you do support.
No, I don't think you're already beholden to the government, because you already have to fill out how much paperwork to get your license and everything else. You're already doing all of that. Like, that's not, you're not really beholden any more than you are when you file for like zoning and coding and everything else. Like, you're already kind of in the bag in terms of work, like owning a business in America. There's already so much that you have to do. This would literally be like, hey, you did all of that stuff. Here's your reward. Here's a bunch of money. Please make sure your workers are paid well.
Court abortion exceptions in the cases of rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Aside from those 3 exceptions, should abortion be banned in America? 60 seconds.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions. As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves. Contrast that with my opponent, John Fetterman, who on this debate stage said that he would demand federally mandated rules for all states they'd have to follow that would allow abortion at 38 weeks on the delivery table, and he would force it to be subsidized by taxpayers across the country no matter what.
So obviously what he's talking about is abortion usually towards the end of the pregnancy because of complications of that pregnancy. That, you know, he says 38 weeks because that's a number that I think would scare people, but that happens all the time because of difficulties in the pregnancy process. That's not anything crazy.
What their personal beliefs are. That's radical. That's extreme. That is out of touch with what the average voter in Pennsylvania believes is appropriate. Now, ironically, John Fetterman's been running ads on this topic, dishonest ads. I need to correct the record. They were so bad, they got pulled off television stations.
They're not setting the price, they're setting the wage. Like, as a society, there is a certain amount of money we need our citizens to make to ensure that there's money circulating. Because when your employees don't make enough money, then money doesn't circulate all through the economy. It only circulates in kind of the top upper echelons. So you want to thrive. You want, you know, it's like a blood system. You want blood, and in this case money, running through all of your body, not through only specific parts. And you can absolutely pursue happiness. Absolutely. All this is saying that you need to provide a certain amount for your workers. That's all it is. Which again, it wouldn't come out of your pocket. That would be provided for by the government.
I've got, even on this station,
through taxes, by the way, that you pay, that you would already be paying, and that your employees are already paying.
He was running dishonest ads that I had pulled off. I haven't had a single ad pulled down. My ads tell the truth. John Fetterman's are a fiction of his imagination.
All right, I'm going to let Mr. Fetterman respond.
Also, Johnny, with all people who are, who are fun to talk to, I always encourage you, if you check down in the description of my Twitch channel, there's an email address. If you'd ever like to come on and we can have a chit chat about your experience as a business owner, I'd love to hear it. And we can kind of like chit chat about these certain things. Always an invite.
Specifically about the ads being pulled off the air, and then we will return to you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman.
Yeah, I want to look into the face of every woman in Pennsylvania. You know, if you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice. But if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Roe v. Wade, for me, should be the law. He celebrated when Roe v. Wade went down, and my campaign would fight for Roe v. Wade, and if given the opportunity, to codify it into law.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Going back to you, I want to circle back to something that you said, Mr. Oz. You mentioned the decision to regulate abortion should be something that is left up to the states. Now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has introduced a federal bill to ban abortion after 15 weeks. I know that you've been asked about this question before. If the vote were held today, you were elected senator, you're on the Senate floor, the clerk calls you, there's a roll call vote. Are you a yay or a nay? How would you vote on the Lindsey Graham bill? You have 30 seconds.
Lisa, I don't even need 30 seconds. I'll give you a bigger answer. I am not going to support federal rules that block the ability of states to do what they wish to do. The abortion decision should be left up to states, and specifically when John Fetterman...
You roll with Doug Mastriano.
John, when I'm done,
John,
you'll have your turn, John.
One moment, Mr. Fetterman. Continue.
I mean, he's not wrong, but also it doesn't matter. There shouldn't be those types of bans. I don't think it should be up to the state either, let alone the federal government.
Mr.
I've been
Oz.
very clear on my desire as a physician not to interfere with how states decide. So when John purposely, knowingly misrepresents that to women, he scares them. He's purposely trying to alarm them, and the fear-mongering isn't working. Running tens of millions of dollars of ads claiming that I'm against all abortions when he knows that's not right, claiming that I'm going to be strict with Pennsylvania when he knows that's not honest. I can't be any clearer than I've been on the stage today. John Fetterman, if you just hear that one story today, I'd be really happy, but I know you're not going to, because you're going to go right back to telling the fables that you believe.
Mr. Oz, I want a 15-second clarification. You are saying that you would leave it up to the states, that the federal government does not have a role here. So are you saying you would not vote for the Lindsey Graham bill?
Any bill that violates what I said, which is the federal government interfering with the state rule on abortion, I would vote against. What I feel strongly about is that women in Pennsylvania understand what I'm saying and not believe that someone who's taken an extreme position like John Fetterman represents them, because most women do not believe that we should, at a federal level, codify 38 weeks of permission to have an abortion and have taxpayers pay for it.
So a yes or no?
I mean, if the life of the mother is at risk, I think that's perfectly reasonable. It always comes down to context. This is why government shouldn't be involved in this.
The Lindsey Graham bill.
I think I've answered this very, very clearly 3 times, Lisa.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr.
Very
Oz.
vaguely, I mean.
Turning to you, Mr. Fetterman, you have frequently stated your belief that abortion should be safe and legal. Do you support any limits on when a woman can have an abortion? Please explain in 60 seconds.
You know, what I support on Roe v. Wade. That was the law of the land for 50 years. He celebrated when it fell down, and I would fight to reestablish on Roe v. Wade. That's what I run on. That's what I believe, and I've always believed that the choice belongs women and their doctors, and he believes that the choice should be with him or Republican legislators all across this nation.
All right.
I'm sorry, I must correct that. Once again, he's misrepresented what I've said, but he also said something very dishonest. On this debate stage, he said very specifically, in his primary debate, when he was still debating, that he would support 38 weeks of mandated rules by the federal government that would prevent any state from blocking it. So that's not Roe versus Wade.
That's not true. I support Roe v. Wade. That's the simple.
John,
Roe
you
v. Wade.
said specifically you would support
right,
a federal rule on 38
Mr. Oz,
weeks.
thank you. Thank you.
Again, he keeps hammering this, which, I mean, Fetterman should really be better about answering this because he keeps saying you support 38 weeks. At the end of the day, he supports 38 weeks if the life of the mother is at risk. That's all you really need to say, is that if doctors deem that it's dangerous for them to continue with their pregnancy, then that 38 weeks is perfectly applicable.
I think it's important that John at least acknowledge that he's not honest here, because you said the
All right,
opposite
Mr.
on
Oz,
TV.
we must continue on. Mr. Fetterman, turning to you, we have a follow-up question. Would you support allocating federal funds to transport women who live in states where abortion is banned to states where they can get one, and why? 30 seconds.
I would, because I believe abortion rights is a universal right for all women in America. I believe abortion is health care, and I believe that is a choice that belongs with each woman and their doctor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's turn to what has become one of the key themes of this race, fitness to serve. For these individual questions, there will be no rebuttals allowed. Mr. Fetterman, we begin with you. You suffered, as you mentioned a moment ago, a stroke 4 days before the May primary. Last week, you released this note from your doctor saying you can work full duty in public office, but you have not released your detailed medical records surrounding your stroke. Mr. Fetterman, will you pledge tonight to release those records in the interest of transparency? You have 60 seconds.
No. To me, for transparency is about showing up. I'm here today to have a debate. I have, speeches in front of 3,000 people in Montgomery County, all across Pennsylvania, big crowds. I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and that's what I believe is appropriate. And now with 2 weeks before the election, I have run a campaign, and I've been very transparent about being very open about the fact we're going to use captioning. And I believe that, again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe in, they all believe that I'm ready to be served.
Follow up, I didn't hear you say you would release your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my Dr. L believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr.
I wouldn't really say that he's... I don't get me wrong. Like, I do think there's a certain amount of medical questions I think one should have again for their representatives, but I also don't think it's all that relevant. I mean, I don't think he needs to like divulge every detail of his medical history. That's not really something I think is fair.
Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, you have
or necessary in that by any means.
Built a lucrative career around medicine, but you've been criticized even by some fellow physicians for promoting, quote, unproven, ill-advised, and at times potentially dangerous treatments. What is your response to that? You have 60 seconds.
One of the great blessings of traveling around Pennsylvania is you run into people who have watched the show. They thank me very much for giving them life-saving advice on chronic issues like high blood pressure or dealing with their anxiety. The show did very well because it provided high-quality information that empowered people, which was exactly what I want to do when I'm a senator. Give people the power. Let them make decisions for their well-being. Now, John Fetterman's approach to health is a very dangerous one. He believes we should socialize medicine. He embraced this with Bernie Sanders, who he endorsed. The two candidates called themselves the two most progressive people in America. When you have socialized medicine, Dennis, you shut down the ability of people to get access to health care. Doctors stop practicing. There are no medications available. The lines get long.
Excuse
it's a disaster, and it puts people at risk.
Okay, that's really because so the amount of countries who have socialized healthcare is basically all of Europe, Japan, I believe parts of Africa, but although I could be wrong about that. And I don't know about you, most of Europe and Japan has very good health outcomes. Like from what I understand, from what I remember, there's not really it's not like you go to England and you're like, oh, there's absolutely zero doctors. There's probably zero doctors that are in it for money, I'm sure, and there certainly aren't doctors who do elective There aren't like rich doctors who do elective surgeries like plastic surgery and shit like that. But I mean, overall, their societies are healthier because people are able to get healthcare more frequently and more easily.
Risk. So I don't believe we should allow
Like at the end of the day, you're asking a guy who made money off of being like a doctor on TV, which wouldn't really be relevant and wouldn't be necessary, quite frankly, in a socialized medicine system. This guy has benefited from the capitalist structure of our healthcare system. So of course he's going to defend it. Of course he's not interested in a socialized system where you don't have to watch TV to get a doctor's opinion. You can just go to your actual doctor.
Medicine, the abolition of all private healthcare insurance in America, and radical positions like the one.
Also, that's not what anybody's arguing for. There is no abolition of private insurance. You would simply section off private insurance into very specific sectors of healthcare. So things like elective surgeries, things like cosmetic surgery, stuff like that. All of that would turn into what you go to for private insurance. Most people in Europe have private insurance, but it's usually a small part of their overall insurance. They, obviously they get most of their broad insurance from the government, from their taxes, but then also purchase private insurance for little things here and there. So, I mean, it's not, you only get private insurance in any of those countries if you want something extra. Like if you want a nose job done, you get private insurance, you start paying for that. They pay for part of it, you pay for a little bit. It's like getting a credit card for one specific purchase. It's like getting a travel card, but for your health insurance.
Taken by John Fetterman, make him too extreme to serve. If we're going to bring balance to Washington, you got to bring people who understand the ramifications. Even Joe Biden called John Fetterman's idea, I'll quote him, preposterous.
Mr. Fetterman, I'm going to let you respond in just a minute, but I have a follow-up for you first, Mr. Oz. Did you or your company make a profit from promoting those products? You have 30 seconds.
I never sold weight loss products as described in those commercials. It's a television show, like this is a television show, so people can run commercials on the shows, and that's a perfectly appropriate and very transparent process.
You also have a choice of which commercials you run. Like, and you also have a choice of what you feature on your show, so...
ruffled a lot of feathers on my show because I told people the truth, and I'm proud of that. And I'll do the exact same thing as a U.S. senator. But there's no way to defend what John Fetterman has done with socialized medicine. That is a radical departure from what we in America have accepted.
A
relationship between your, John, you'll have your turn. John, let me finish.
Respond to that.
There must be a relationship between a doctor and a patient, and that's what I would direct patients to do.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he accused you of socialized medicine, supporting socialized medicine. What is your response?
Yeah, again, it's the Oz rule. He's on TV and he's lying. I never supported any of that thing. He keeps talking about Bernie Sanders. 3 years ago, he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, "I love this guy. You know what? Why don't you pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because all you can do is talk about Bernie Sanders. Because my truth is that healthcare is a basic fundamental right, and I believe in expanding that, and I believe about fighting for.
You certainly couldn't make the argument that from our Constitution that life doesn't constitute your healthcare. Like
healthcare, the kind of healthcare that saved my life.
Dennis, that was dishonest. He explicitly supported socialized medicine.
We have a lot of topics to get to. I think it's Lisa, you go ahead.
I'm also not sure why he's kind of dodging that. I'm just not sure why he's dodging that. Medicare for all is incredibly popular. If anything, I would say this is a big flaw of this debate on Fetterman's side. So far, I haven't seen the I've heard that this wasn't a great debate for Fetterman. I don't think it's gone horribly, but I also think that he's kind of run from a few things that I'm what are you running from? You should be supporting Medicare for all. That's a lot. It's incredibly popular. I don't know why he's dodging that. I don't know why he's running from that.
We are going to move on to the next topic, and this has come up earlier, and that is the issue of fracking. Pennsylvania only trails Texas in terms of natural gas production. Both of you have taken shifting positions on the issue of fracking. Mr. Oz, we begin with you. You wrote a column in 2014 calling for no fracking pending health study results. But in a video posted on social media in March, you said, quote, "Natural gas guarantees high-paying skilled jobs right here in Pennsylvania, so back off Biden, give us freedom to frack. Mr. Oz, please explain that changing position. 60 seconds.
I've been very consistent. Fracking has been demonstrated. It's a very old technology to be safe. It is a lifeline for this Commonwealth to be able to build wealth, similar to what they've been able to achieve in other states. For that reason, I strongly support fracking, drilling, the piping of that natural gas. In fact, I'd build a facility even in Philadelphia so we can export it to our allies and help them, the ones that are struggling now in Eastern and Western Europe because of the Ukrainian war. John Fetterman calls fracking a stain on Pennsylvania. He says that he would sign a moratorium to ban its...
So, Johnny, I would also say, first of all, it wouldn't really cost that much. You could take a portion out of it, actually, you could probably take all of it out of the military budget and wouldn't really raise too much. Certainly taxes would go up, but that's always about how you choose to tax. If the regular average American is paying maybe an extra 1% to 2%, it's pretty, what's the word? Irrelevant if you're getting like all of the healthcare that you now have to pay, at least a couple $100 per person or so. If not, like I pay about $100 a month, and like I don't really get great healthcare for that, and I get it off of like the private market. So, you know, if you're telling me I'm going to get a 1% raise in my taxes, but I also won't be saddled with an immense amount of debt if I go to the hospital, if anything happens, like unfortunately in this country, healthcare is one of those things where it's bankrupted so many people and it's ruined so many people's lives that we need to focus on it in a more immediate and have a solution that's more immediate and that's more broad, because so many people get sick, so many people get these healthcare bills. You've seen it before, you know, where people get like insane healthcare bills and it bankrupts them, and then their lives are economically over for the next like 10 to 15 years possibly. So, you know, but yeah, it'd be rough. It wouldn't cost us that much though. The number would probably be high, but the actual where that number comes from, you can do a lot in terms of figuring out that number. You could just simply put a tax on Wall Street speculation and make a lot of that money without raising taxes on anybody. So it would all be about where you tax people from. If you're asking me, you just tax the higher brackets. You just tax higher earners a lot more. So, you know, you tax your millionaires, your billionaires, you just tax them a lot. Like that's the easy solution there.
Continued use. He's against pipelines. He voted or supported the vote against the Keystone pipeline that ended up shutting it down. He supports Biden's desire to ban fracking on public lands, which are our lands, all of our lands together. This is a extreme position.
So if you're talking about a country spending 60% of its 60% of its economy on its healthcare, I don't see a problem with that. We spend, I don't even know the percentage on our military. I would rather personally see if this country is going to, let's take a blank number. Let's say this country, we take in taxes $1 million. I would rather, I would rather 60% of that go towards our healthcare and 40% goes to our military than what it is, which is like 0% on healthcare, probably more like 10 since we have the Medicare and Medicaid systems and Social Security. The smaller percent, those probably make up maybe like 10, maybe 15, 20% of our total like economy output that the government puts in, as opposed to our military, which is incredibly high. That we don't do. Are we fighting wars right now? We're not. Like, come on.
In Pennsylvania, it would help everybody. Why?
It's always about focus, and it's all about prioritization, what you prioritize. I think we should prioritize the health of our citizens more. That's why I support socialized medicine.
John Fetterman is so rigidly stuck on fighting against energy companies is stunning to me, because it's the jobs I want. Tens of thousands of high-paying jobs to help Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Oz.
Oz rule.
Mr. Fetterman,
you know,
15
I
seconds.
absolutely support fracking. In fact, I live across the street from a steel mill, and they were going to frack to create their own energy in order to make them more competitive. And I support that, living closer to anybody else in Pennsylvania for fracking to myself. I believe that we need independence with energy, and I believe I've walked that line.
As far as I know, he's not been a supporter of fracking, as far as I know. So no, that does not look great. Also, fracking, I don't think is really, you know, oil extraction is a dying industry. You know, at the end of the day, we kind of need to progress as a country into new forms of energy, and our reliance on oil drilling and everything else isn't going to help that. Like, at the end of the day, those jobs will eventually dry up.
My entire career. I believe Democrats...
Mr. Fetterman, I do have a specific question, which you can continue on this topic, but you have made two conflicting statements regarding fracking. In a 2018 interview, you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all. I never have."
Oof.
But earlier this month, you told an interviewer, quote, "I support fracking. I support the energy independence that we should have here in the United States." So, Mr. Fetterman, please explain your changing position. 60 seconds.
Certainly, there's a place for fracking. There's a place for oil
I've always
extraction.
supported fracking, and I
but
always believe that independence with our energy
I
is
don't think
critical,
it should
and we can't
be
held,
the backbone of our
ransom to somebody like
energy
Russia.
independence.
I've always believed that
You
energy
pull enough
independence
oil
is critical,
out of the
and
ground,
I've always
that's
believed
going
that
to
I
end
do
up
support
hurting
fracking.
your
We've never
environment.
taken any money from their industry, but I support how critical it is that we produce our own energy and create energy independence.
Wow, that was just a lie. I can't really say much about that.
I must correct the record.
Just a second, Mr. Oz. I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all." So how do you square the two?
How do both of these guys? How is it both of these guys are trying to make the argument that they've always supported fracking, but both of them in the same year did interviews where they both said the exact same thing, that they don't support fracking at all? Like, Jesus Christ. Politicians.
I do support fracking, and I don't.
Oh no, I thought he was talking about Oz. Okay. I thought he was talking about Oz. Okay, I was like, oh my god. Okay. Okay. No, I take that back. Redacted from the thing.
You will have a chance to have that in your
Redacted from the file. I never said that.
Mr. Oz, we want to now turn to public safety. Mr. Fetterman, Republicans have called you dangerously soft on crime. The Pennsylvania State Troopers Association.
Yeah, we're a bunch of mountain boys talking about Pennsylvania.
Mr. Oz, what is your
who are we to talk about Pennsylvania?
What is your response
out here
to
in the
accusations
mountains
that you are, quote, dangerously soft on crime? You have 60 seconds.
I saw you lived in Utah, Johnny. You guys have a beautiful state, by the way.
I ran to be mayor back in 2005 in order to fight gun violence, and that's exactly what I did. And
also,
let
me know that I'm pronouncing your username right.
To stop gun violence for 5.5 years as mayor, ever accomplished before or since my time as mayor, because I'm the only person on this stage right now that is successful about pushing back against gun violence and being the community more safe. All he's done is just put a plan up on his website in the last 24 hours. He has no experience.
Johnny.
He has never made any attempt to try to address crime during his entire career, except showing up for photo ops here in Philadelphia.
I will give you 15 seconds to respond to that, and then I have a question for you.
The Fraternal Order of Police from Braddock, the small town he represented, endorsed me. They supported me because what he's saying is not true. Violence skyrocketed in Braddock. I mean, the town wasn't in a good shape when John got there. It got worse when he was there. People kept leaving. So, of course, you're going to have all kinds of aberrations. But, John, the city was dangerous under your leadership, and that's why the FOP endorsed me.
Mr. Oz, this past summer, Congress passed the first gun control bill in decades. That would not have happened without the support of the man you are running to replace, Pat Toomey. How would you have voted on that bill, and would you continue Toomey's legacy as being one of the lead Republicans in Congress on pushing for gun reforms? You have 60 seconds.
Also, I'll just say, I would say that I don't think the gun bill that they passed earlier does enough. I'm not anti-gun. I fucking love guns, but that bill didn't really address any of the problems that it needs to address. I think mostly in America, our problem with guns is cultural, not really legislatively. People will say, like, who needs this or that firearm, and that's not really what it's about. To me at least, it's all about our toxic gun culture. Our gun culture, unfortunately, in this country is very, very negative and more based around fear of other people than genuine interest in just firearms and range shooting and shit like that.
I have been supported by Pat Toomey. I've enjoyed working with him. I think he's done a wonderful job. There are parts of that bill that I like a lot. For example, I like the fact that the background checks are being strengthened now, so we can make sure that people who should not have guns don't get guns. I also like the fact that there's a lot of money invested for mental health, which is an important part of the equation. I've been to Philadelphia. I've done prayer vigils with black clergy leaders who are desperately trying to save the people in their community. Half the murders in Philadelphia are committed by people under 18. We have got to get mental health services to these people, and it's not happening
wrong
now. But part of the problem is that we have taken away the ability of police to do.
So part of the problem is there's always this, like, oh, it's either mental health or it's either too loose of gun laws. It's a bit of both. We do have too loose of laws, but we also don't spend any money or advocate for any kind of mental health care, which would also I would support as being part of our socialized healthcare system.
Do their job, and that's on John Fetterman. Because John Fetterman has taken such a harsh position against them. He's undermined them at every level, taken away some of their funding. He's pushed for Krasner, who he admires tremendously, and he's spoken highly of him just this week. He's taken his policies to a new extreme. He's argued that people should be let out of jail without any bail, no matter what they did to get in there. He's argued to release one-third of all prisoners. One-third of all prisoners out of touch.
Quickly, 15 seconds. Would you have voted for that Pat Toomey supported bill? If you
I would have
were in
tried
the
to improve that bill. There are things that I think most of us appreciate. I wasn't there at the time, so I can't speak to what was possible. But I do know there are parts of that bill that do make sense, and the ones I described should be followed. Let's see how it works out.
Okay, thank you. Lisa.
On to our next issue, and that is illegal immigration. It has been a problem in the United States for decades, but it is now spiking. U.S. Customs and Border Protection just released numbers from fiscal year 2022. They show more than 2.7 million total enforcement actions in the U.S. That is the most ever. Mr. Oz, beginning with you. Republican governors in the South have been sending migrants to Democrat.
And let's also, and let's also note that most of those numbers are from people who overstay their visas, not people who enter illegally. They enter legally and then overstay their visas. That's how most people are categorized as illegal aliens.
Run cities and states.
Which, by the way, so I personally, when it comes to illegal immigration, it's really not. It's really more of a cultural problem than I think than more of a legislative one.
Without a plan or without any coordination, it is certainly
more of like
getting
a
lot of
political
attention, but is it an effective
topic.
way to deal with the influx of migrants? You have 60 seconds.
Lisa, we have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities, as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. But I've been into the.
I thought
parts
Dr.
of
Oz
Philadelphia,
believed in
Allentown,
freedom.
and Reading, where we have large Latino
Freedom of,
populations. I understand the
small
challenges of
small
of
town
border.
freedom.
My father was an immigrant. My mother were immigrants. I understand what legal immigration.
Are we
offers
going
us,
to do
but
the
completely porous, open nature of our border, which John Fetterman supports, has created a humanitarian crisis with cartels profiting, with human trafficking operations. They take the money.
Cartels profiting that you could undercut by ending the drug war. Like all you would do is end the drug war, and you'd immediately undercut most of the business of cartels.
They buy narcotics from China and bring that into our country, and it's making every state a border state. Pennsylvania is already a border state because we're top 3 in the country.
Canada.
In fentanyl overdoses.
You're always a border state. You're the border to Canada, you dumbass.
Anywhere where, and giving a big event where I don't meet multiple people who say their personal lives have been destroyed because of.
Notice, I also want to point that out. Notice how he doesn't think of Pennsylvania as a border state because it's bordering Canada. To him, that's not a border state. It's only if you're near Mexico are you a border state.
Fentanyl overdoses. Yet John Fetterman not only wants an open border, not only supports sanctuary cities, but he wants to legalize all hard drugs in America, including narcotics. That is, out of touch with everybody. That radical position was tried in Oregon, which he endorsed. 50% homicide increase rate.
One moment. I will give a 15-second rebuttal.
Yeah, that is, again, the Oz rule. That is just not true. Here, his family's company levied the largest fine for immigration hiring of immigrant illegals. And I think you should sit this one out about in terms of what a secure border.
All right. We do have a follow-up specifically for you, Mr. Fetterman. Vice President Kamala Harris says the southern border is secure, yet we are seeing an unprecedented number of migrants crossing. Is the border secure? And if not, what would you do to fix what both parties are calling a crisis? You have 60 seconds, Mr. Fetterman.
Right. Again, this goes back to my point that most people who are categorized as illegal aliens overstay their visas. They don't hop over or sneak in or whatever. A vast majority of people. There are people who do that, but a larger majority are people who tend to just overstay their visas.
I believe that a secure border can be compatible with compassion. I believe we need a comprehensive and bipartisan solution for immigration. That's what I believe. I don't ever recall in the Statue of Liberty did they say, take our tired, huddled masses and put them on a bus and use cheap political stunts about them. I believe we have to.
Yeah, morally, let's be really clear. The whole sending migrants to wherever so that they can miss their court dates and then yada yada yada. We have a system for asylum for a reason, but that is morally reprehensible. Just for using people as political pawns and messing with their safety and everything else just to score some points. It's not. There is no justifiable use of taxpayer dollars, let alone even private dollars. I think that's pretty disgusting and gross. Those who migrate legally and cost them thousands of dollars. Doesn't that sound unfair? I'm not sure. Are you saying that illegal aliens cost regular immigrating citizens thousands of dollars. And also, I don't think, when we talk about unfair, not unfair, if somebody's like fleeing their country because of warlords and cartels and somebody else is just moving here casually, I don't think it's unfair to let both of those people in just because, I think that's pretty fair because the person who wants to move here just wants to move here. But the person who needs to get away from cartels, needs to get away from the things I mentioned, they also need to get here. So it has nothing to do with fairness on that end. I think people have a right to their asylum process. We have it in place in this country for a reason.
Develop a comprehensive and bipartisan solution to address our issue here for immigration here in our nation.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. On to the
But
next
John's
issue.
not addressing the elephant in the room, fentanyl.
We have to move on to the next issue. We will be circling back on that.
Turning now to
Fentanyl.
To the United States of America. You have 60 seconds.
Guys, we have a ton of like drug problems in this country. Fentanyl is just the new flavor of the month.
I believe, is right now is China. I believe China is not our friend, and I
Greatest
believe
foreign threat to America.
I'm
surprised that it's not Russia, considering their
manufacture
what's
all of
the
his
word?
merchandise on his name on it in China. Which one of us on this stage is
you
gonna
wouldn't
stand up
say
Russia
against
since
China? The whole nuclear war stuff.
And I believe that's our single
understandable.
biggest issue right now, to make sure that we address China and make sure that we know that it's not our friend.
Mr. Oz, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
The fact that our country is not projecting strength. Take, for example, what we're doing with Iran. In order to try to get them to give us a little oil so we can deal with the catastrophe that Russia has caused, we have gone to them and tried to sign a deal that would allow them once again to have the nuclear power to blow up Israel, which they promised they would do. John Fetterman supports that deal. It doesn't make any sense for America to treat our enemies better than our allies. We have to message with our strong voice and the energy we have in our country that we have control over our future.
Now, I'm not a foreign policy wonk, but as far as I know, like, there was already a nuclear deal with Iran, like, that Biden and the Democrats support. So I don't know what he's talking about with like us giving nukes or allowing them to have nukes. I mean, first of all, they had nukes before. Like they had them before during the plan. It was all about if they're using them and if they're proliferating them. So
future. And the best way for America to establish its dominance is to unleash the energy here in Pennsylvania.
Like, the fuck are we worried about Iran for? There's like Russia right there.
All kinds of problems with local jobs and inflation, but we're destroying our ability to remain energy dominant.
Like, China's a threat.
We're not able to
China's like
allies like we should be for countries like European nations.
Like, China's a threat, but in terms of economically, not like in terms of its military. Like, they're economically a threat to us being the global hegemony, but like, Russia, if anything, is the military threat.
A hypothetical rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2024 would be a statistical tie in Pennsylvania.
Jesus.
46% of people said they would vote for former President Trump, 45% for President Biden. Mr. Oz, would you support a Trump 2024 run, and why 60 seconds?
Obviously.
Whoever the Republican Party puts up. And I have reached out across the aisle on my campaign because I want to bring balance to Washington. And I've tried to work with Democrats and Republicans and people in the middle, and people unsure, and people who forgot, people who got angry with where their party was headed. I want to bring us together to make this country do what it's always been able to do. Unify, not divide. And address the problems as a surgeon, because in the OR, that's what I do. I just fix the big problem. John Fetterman, however, cannot go to Washington and work with the other side because he doesn't even get along with his own side. He criticized Joe Biden for not spending enough money and not sidling up close enough to Bernie Sanders. He says,
wait, so you're telling me people in a party disagree with their party leader? Whoa, that's like totally a bad thing. Aren't these guys supposed to be the ones who are talking about how they're free thinkers and shit? Shouldn't you be able to disagree with like one part of your party, especially its leader? Like,
he won't work with Joe Manchin. He said, if you like Joe Manchin, don't vote for me. So if you're picking,
it's almost like Fetterman has like biases towards and against certain people. Like, he's like, I don't really get along that well with Biden. I really don't get along with Manchin, but I get along with Bernie. It's almost like he's ideologically consistent.
Fight with your own party.
Unlike Oz, who would just be like, I'll work with anybody, because he doesn't have real positions.
For Republican lawmakers, we need to send someone to Washington who understands the importance of balance, sensible decision making, and a common sense approach to the challenges that we all face. That's not John Fetterman.
Mr. Oz, Donald Trump has supported you. He has endorsed you. Why won't you fully commit to supporting him in 2024?
Oh, I do. I would support Donald Trump if he decided to run for president.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
this
I
is
was
Bigger
like,
than one
no
candidate.
way
This is
he
a
supports
much
him and he
bigger story
doesn't.
about how we're going to build a bigger tent to let more Americans feel safe.
Are you concerned
Hey
about
man,
the ongoing legal
all
investigations
reality
involving the
show
former president?
TV
30 seconds, sir.
hosts lives
I haven't followed
matter.
it very carefully. I've been campaigning pretty aggressively. They'll work themselves out. I have tremendous confidence in the American legal system, and I believe law and order will reign supreme. But speaking about that topic, there's one person on the stage who's broken the law, we believe. John Fetterman took a shotgun, chased an unarmed African-American man, and put the gun, apparently, according to that man, to his chest. John, you weren't pulled over by the police. They let you go. You were the mayor at the time. Why haven't you apologized to that unarmed, innocent black man who you put a shotgun to his chest?
All right, we will allow a 30-second response to that, Mr. Fetterman, specifically what he was saying, referring to the incident in Braddock.
I made the opportunity to defend our community as the chief law enforcement officer there. Everybody in Braddock, an overwhelming majority community of black community, all understood what happened. You know, they understood what happened, and everybody agreed that, and nobody believes that it was anything about me making a split-second decision to defend our community as well.
Why not apologize?
Mr. Oz, please, we are still with Mr. Fetterman. Turning to you right now, you support a Biden run. Do you support a Biden run in 2024? Why in 60 seconds?
That's obviously, it's up to his choice whether he, and if he does choose to run, I would absolutely support him, but ultimately that's only his choice.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. A follow-up question on this. Our Next Star poll shows 51% of Pennsylvania voters disapprove of the president's job performance. You have publicly supported many of his policy positions. Are there any that you disagree with? 30 seconds.
Oof. This is at 1.25 speed too. Let's take a look at, I'm curious. Let's take a look at this news story. Pulling shotgun on black jogger in 2013, but explains he would not do it. He would not do it now. Pennsylvania Democratic Senate candidate John Fetterman, in an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer's editorial board, addressed and defended the now infamous 2013 incident in which he chased a black jogger with a shotgun while he was mayor of the city of Braddock. What a fucking Chad. Fetterman, who is Pennsylvania's lieutenant governor, had gone after the man believing he had been involved in a shooting. It turned out that he had not been, but Fetterman maintains that he had not engaged in racial profiling. I understand there's a history of black and brown communities profile, but this was simply an individual that had a mask, and I wasn't aware of anything about it other than he was the only individual running from the gunfire. At the time, Fetterman told local TV station WTAE that he had heard what sounded like assault rifle gunshots and had seen a man running. Fetterman said he had taken a shotgun out of the vehicle and merely used it to detain the man until police showed up. He claimed he had not pointed it at the man, later identified as Christopher Miares, but Miares said otherwise. Miares said Fetterman, quote, followed me into North Braddock and pulled a shotgun and aimed it at my chest. 9 years later, Fetterman defended his actions. He claimed he was doing his job as mayor and that he would not act the same way today because he no longer has that job. It was a decision I made in the split second to protect the community as the chief law enforcement officer. He said, it's not something that I would repeat simply because right now I'm not in that kind of role. Last month, a group of American Leadership Action released an attack. I don't care about that. Yeah, I mean, sounds jumpy. Also, a thing that I don't think is a good idea. Again, toxic gun culture. Probably shouldn't go after people with shot. Like, I understand his, like, well, I'm like the mayor of this town. I have to defend the town. Dude, this isn't the Wild West. Please chill the fuck out. Like, Jesus Christ.
Any that you disagree with? 30 seconds.
No, I just believe he needs to do more about supporting and fighting about inflation. And I do believe he can do more about that. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Biden is a good family man, and I believe he stands for the union way of life. And I believe that unemployment is already down to the lowest level in the last 50 years.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Let's turn now, gentlemen.
Is that
to the
true?
issue of Social
I don't
Security.
know if that's true.
Fully funded through 2034.
But also, it didn't
Many
really answer the
Americans
question.
are worried that they will never receive.
Like if you're asking me, is Joe Biden a good president? I'd be like, it's fine. He's made about the same impact any other Democratic president has. Not doing enough. That's usually the theme of Democratic presidencies since FDR.
Their full benefit or have to accept cuts to their benefits. Mr. Fetterman, how are you going to make sure it is there for them? You have 60 seconds.
We need to make sure that Dr. Oz and the Republicans believe in cutting Medicare and Social Security. And I believe that they have to support and expand Social Security. And if somebody send me to Washington, D.C., I would support and stand and to support security, Social Security.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oz.
I
Any
mean, you
questions
paid
for
into
you?
it.
How
People
are you
should
going
get their
to make
Social
sure that
Security
Social
benefits.
Security is available for future Americans. You have 60 seconds.
Which, by the way, Republicans are right now talking about cutting if they take power.
We made a deal with the wonderful seniors of our nation. They worked their hearts out. They paid into a program. No one's going to touch it on my watch except to make sure that it's stronger than it is right now. Social Security, Medicare, which I know a lot about as a doctor, are the fundamental element of security for our seniors, and they deserve to feel.
If it's the fundamental backbone security, whatever the fuck you said, for seniors, and you're defending Medicare, why not just expand it to everybody and let it be everybody's fundamental backbone to their care? Like, why wouldn't you want that benefit for everybody? It's so good. Why not give it to everybody?
Feel like they're valued by our nation. John Fetterman, again, has been running ads and saying that I'm against those with no proof. I've never said anything different than what I'm saying to you on this stage. But in an effort to fearmonger with people who are older and can be taken advantage of, he'll run these ads. John, it's reprehensible, but it's also reflective of your approach to doing these things. You haven't shown up on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from voters.
Because of a
once
stroke.
on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from media once on the campaign trail. Even
Again, he hasn't been on the campaign trail because of his stroke.
I could get you to come to talk to me on, and I had to beg on my knees to get you to come. And if it wasn't for Dennis probably getting involved, I don't think it would have happened. Seniors need to know more about your radical left positions, and I need to be able to tell them about my
Wait,
position.
what's the radical left position? That he supports Medicare? Like, it's funny because he's painting him as if he doesn't support Medicare, but he supports Medicare and an expansion of Medicare. Dr. Oz is just like, I don't know, I keep it the same, I guess.
On. We exchange ideas, the voters decide. You have hidden from them.
Mr. Oz, I'm going to let you.
He hasn't said
15 seconds in a
anything,
moment, Mr. Fetterman, but can you give us a specific example of what you would do to protect Social Security?
Well, for one, we have to make sure that it adequately increases with the higher inflation rates that we have. So we've got to make that 4% of wasted money that right now is in the budget redirect.
Yeah, American mainstream politics is.
Here's the reason.
I think personally, I think with the with Trump running back in 2016, I feel like the floodgates for a lot of these. I really wish that we'd have like more normal people and more like average Americans like running for office. But, obviously running for office is incredibly expensive. It's why we need like public elections, publicly financed elections. But yeah, and you get guys like Dr. Oz, who's like some millionaire off of hawking miracle pills and being a TV personality. It's what's that movie? Idiocracy. So sadly.
Worst things we can do to a people is give them bad quality care. And so if you have people who are not going to see a doctor, for example, because they can't afford it, they'll get sicker. Bad medicine means more cost. No one benefits.
Thank you.
It's almost like socialized medicine would solve that problem, which you supported for seniors. It's always weird to me. These guys will support like socialized medicine and say all of the things that I say about why we should have that system for everybody, but then say like it's great and it's good for seniors. Like why wouldn't you support that system's expansion to everybody else?
Mr. Fetterman, he said
you want the most amount of people to be healthy and be able to go to doctors.
Now, again, I can't just say one thing other than that Dr. Oz would not.
Glad we're at
support,
1.25 speed.
Cutting Medicare, and that's
John. Why do you say that? I've never said that.
It's absolutely a fact. It's a fact. You would have voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which has dropped our prescription drugs, and he doesn't believe.
Okay, gentlemen, we need to move on. Lisa.
All right, we are moving on to the topic.
He's also
of
saying
education.
would have,
The cost
which
of
like
college
Oz gets to
tuition
be
is
like,
now
I wouldn't have
at
voted for that. He would have
families.
voted for that.
Our question
All of
is
his
for
rhetoric
both
and
of you.
his
Start
like
with Mr.
Republic
Oz.
and
What
like
is your
with
plan
his
to bring
party,
down the
he would
cost of higher
absolutely
education
side
long-term?
with his
You have 1
party.
minute, Mr. Oz.
I've worked in academic medical centers my whole life, so I'm in higher education. And I can tell
What is
you the
your plan
reason
to
the
bring
prices
down
have
the
gone
cost?
up sixfold in the last 40 years is not because the education quality is better. We've added extra layers of middle-level individuals who don't actually improve the quality education, in my opinion.
Yep. Correct.
There's a lot of expenses now incurred by these institutions, and
Yep.
it's not right for the American people to be stuck with
Right.
the bill.
Right.
I would push them to offer more electronic classes. Half the kids don't live on campus anyway. John Fetterman's approach, however, is not to deal
Yeah,
with
electronic
unnecessarily
classes
high
have also
costs, but
not
just to
shown to
pay
be
it.
as effective
So if you want to
as
pay students who
in
didn't pay their
like
loans back,
in-person
basically what
learning.
John Fetterman and Joe Biden are arguing for is for plumbers who didn't go to college and couldn't, for a bunch of reasons, afford it, to pay the bills of lawyers who went to graduate school and haven't paid their debt back. I don't think that's right for the American people. We want a fair system.
Oh, is
Drop
he
the cost
complaining
down by
about
pushing for
the
more value
debt
for what we're
relief?
spending,
Cry me a
and
fucking
ensures
river,
a
dude.
high-quality education that lets people make a living when they graduate.
All right, I will allow.
So long term, his solution is yeah. If that's what he's talking about, then like sure, like that's fair. But like in-person learning has been shown to be more effective. But yeah, I mean, what is like let's see where, like, what it.
The quality education, in my opinion. There's a lot of expenses now.
What is your plan to bring? What is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education? Let's see what the plan is.
And it's not right for the American people to be stuck with the bill. I would push them to offer more electronic classes. Half the kids
Okay.
on campus anyway. John Fetterman's approach, however, is not to deal with
Half the kids? I don't think half the kids.
unnecessarily high costs, but just to pay it. So if you want to pay students who didn't pay their loans back, basically what John Fetterman and Joe Biden are arguing for is for
Absolutely.
plumbers who didn't
He's
go to
also,
college.
this also isn't a solution. This is complaining. Your solution is complaining that we had to like give debt relief to people because college is too expensive. Like, that's a solution. Not once has he provided any solution. It's not, hey, we should privatize, we should create a public system for people to get their educations. That'll bring down costs because now private institutions will have to compete with public ones. None of this, not even the most basic version of that has he argued for.
For a bunch of reasons afforded to pay the bills of lawyers.
He's just
who went to graduate
complaining.
school and
It's
haven't
just
paid their debt
complaining
back.
that,
I
like,
don't think that's
oh,
right
it's
for the
not
American
fair
people.
that
We want a fair
some
system.
people's
Drop the cost
tax
down by
dollars are going to
pushing
be
for more
used
value for the money
to
we're
pay other
spending
people.
and
When you're not
ensuring
getting
a
charged
high-quality
that.
education that lets people make a living when they graduate.
All right, I will allow a 15-second
Yeah,
rebuttal.
'cause less people can
specifically
get their
on the issue of
education.
Student loan debt, which Mr. Oz was referring to. Mr. Fetterman.
Again,
Yeah, there's
for us,
literally no plan in
loves
that.
free money when it's a $500,000 tax break on one of his homes down in a ranch in Florida. And
Not
whether
wrong.
It was a $50 tax break about his farm in Montgomery County. So it's about
Not wrong.
supporting and helping young earners, young students to give them a break. I believe that supporting
All right, let me just.
I feel like, this is because I heard about Fetterman's debate performance. So far, this is at 1.25 speed. So, like, we are seeing any of his stumbles in, like, a little bit faster speed. But, like, as far as I can tell, he's not, I mean, his answers aren't, like, amazing. It could be better. But I can't really help but be like, this, like, he's stumbling over his words. Yeah, I mean, he's fine. He had a stroke. He's kind of gonna stumble. I think them holding him to a strict timer is like a bit unfair because he's not gonna be able to function. And if they're gonna be lenient with him in terms of his time, then that's fine. At least let him finish his sentences and his thoughts. But like, so far, I mean, he's not performing that badly. I've heard it didn't go super well. But I think that's also going with the expectation that he was going to crush Oz the way his campaigns ads have been as aggressive, which, yeah, he hasn't been as strong. Clearly.
Specifically, with the plan to ease student loan debt, the debt forgiveness of $10,000, $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Do you support that position?
I do absolutely support that.
Absolutely.
Like I said, it's about helping young learners, be able to get a better start, getting off in the start of their life. And I do believe that, and I believe a majority of Americans support that as well too, helping young learners.
All right, Mr. Fetterman, I want to ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Oz. And what is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term?
Let's see.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't answer. He didn't answer the question whatsoever.
I did answer the question.
No, you
Mr.
didn't.
Oz,
You complained, my guy.
You didn't. You didn't. I fundamentally believe that every quality public university education should be very affordable in every state. And I think that needs to be a significant investment, to make sure that anyone be able to afford to go to get a 4-degree university degree, at Penn State or at Pitt or any state schools, to make it much more affordable. And that means acquiring a significant investment to make sure and create it affordable that every family can afford.
How exactly, Mr. Fetterman, do you propose doing that to make it more affordable?
Investment,
for
okay.
families?
No, I just believe, making it that much more, it costs too much, and I believe providing the resources to reduce the tuition to allow families to be able to afford it.
we have a follow-up.
That's not a plan. That's more of a that's more of like a moral, that's like a goal or like a moral desire, but that's not a plan. If you want a plan, it's what's it called? Providing tuition-free colleges at state schools to its state citizens. That's a plan. Everything he said right there was not a plan. Like, there was like kind of a bit of a plan, but it's that was not a good answer. That was a pretty bad answer.
question. This one now is for both of you. This is from News Nation viewer Ann Andrews, a registered nurse from Conneautville near Erie. Ann is a vocational educational
Near
instructor at
Erie.
the university and a practicing registered nurse.
If you were elected, could you please tell me what you would be doing for vocational education in the state of Pennsylvania as well as our nation?
So, Mr. Oz, if elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
I've visited vocational schools. I have an answer. But, John, because obviously I wasn't clear enough for you to understand this, there's no question that cutting out the middle levels of higher education and providing digital programs would reduce the cost of education. It's a concrete set of ideas that I'd like to move on. With regard to vocational education, this is really important for us to allow our trade unions to get more closely linked with the vocational schools. I was in a vocational school in Westmoreland, and they have about 1,000
Hey,
kids.
Westmoreland. That's where some of my family's from, is that region.
They could take 2,000 kids. Funding those programs is the smartest way to invest our tax dollars. We'll turn out twice as many children who have a job as soon as they graduate. It supports our trade unions who want those kids in their positions anyway. It makes the whole program work.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, he's actually mostly right. That is a good thing. Now, granted, again, that's not like a broad solution for everybody, but that is a minor solution. That's something you can do.
Oz,
I would support that.
If elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
Again, I think it's just the same way that university for degrees as well too. Supporting that and partnering with the unions and making sure that vocation training are as
I actually don't know
affordable
Oz's
and providing
stance
the
on unions
resources to
either.
make sure
I'm
everyone has
assuming
the
he's
opportunity. Going to college is a
pro
great choice for every
until
person.
a certain
going
point.
to those kind of vocational schools, able to create a career to reach a lot of high salary, and again, supporting to reduce those costs are critical too.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Moving now, multiple members of Congress, specifically Democrats,
Guess who farted? That's news to me that John Fetterman has a multi-billion-dollar investment firm.
have called for the Supreme Court.
I'm surprised that hasn't come up during this
Candidates,
debate.
we want to know where you stand on this. Mr. Fetterman, should the Supreme Court be expanded? And if so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I don't believe, I don't stand, and I don't believe in that. You know, I fundamentally believe that even though I don't agree with the ideological breakup of the Supreme Court, you know, I believe it's not about changing the rules. It's about acknowledging where
I do
we're
not.
at, much the way the Republicans want to try to.
Again, I'm surprised I haven't heard about it
Our
until
Supreme
literally
Court in
just now.
Pennsylvania was going to be done, and I don't support that. So I think it's critical that we be consistent, and I do not believe in supporting the Supreme Court.
Mr. Oz, same question to you. Should the Supreme Court be expanded?
Also, what does
If
that
so,
have
by
to
how many
do with
justices? You have
anything?
60 seconds.
Even
I
if
would never touch the
even if what you
Supreme
said was
Court.
true, I don't see how
I would,
that's relevant.
advocate to leave it the exact same size it is. But John Fetterman's radical positions have spilled over into what he would do in Washington. One of the first things he has said, and he came back to the campaign trail, is that he wanted to bust the filibuster, which means removing the brakes on the Senate overreacting. That's
That's
risk.
true. That is true.
But if you do that, then you would free up the Democrats in the Senate without getting the normal amount of votes to actually expand the Supreme Court, add more states, do things that are detrimental to the well-being of the country.
Whoa, adding 2 states. So I would love to hear an argument how adding 2 states would be detrimental to the country. Because it wasn't detrimental when we added the other 4, like, what is it? We started with 13 and we're now up to 50. It wasn't detrimental before then. So why is it detrimental now? I can't figure out. I can't figure out why Republicans specifically don't want other states to be added. Almost like they don't want more states to have to run in because they have unpopular ideas.
So I think,
And also, yeah, if you're asking from a political standpoint, they should absolutely expand the court and nominate a bunch of left-wing judges. And at the end of the day, they should probably blow up the court in terms of its usefulness until Republicans decide to stop playing around with the court's makeup. Because at the end of the day, the only reason why the court is the way that it is because Republicans specifically would not have their hearings on Obama's pick during Obama's last year. But then conveniently during Trump's last year, they had no problem pushing through whatever judge that Trump wanted. So no, like, the Supreme Court has been politicized at that point, past a certain point. Democrats should have just expanded and said, look, we're going to expand it. If you keep going, we're going to just keep expanding it. And we'll call it a day. We'll make this a completely useless institution until you guys tap out. That's what should have happened if Democrats were strong. But they're not.
and your first day back arguing that we should get rid of the filibuster is a dangerously radical move that would hurt Washington. It's not in our nation's best interest.
Thank you both very much.
All right, at this time, we are ready for our closing statements. You each have 90 seconds to convince Pennsylvanians to vote for you on Election Day. Mr. Fetterman, you are first, 90 seconds.
Once again, I would just like to say that I My campaign is all about fighting for anyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to get back up again. You know, I'm also fighting for any forgotten community all across Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to be made to get back up. You know, I've made my entire career dedicating to those kinds of pursuits. I started as a GED instructor back in Braddock over 20 years ago because I believe it's about serving Pennsylvania, not about using Pennsylvania for their own end interests as well. To me, careers are revealed by your real underlying values. And my values have always been about fighting for forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, your final thoughts, 90 seconds.
I've loved traveling to the four corners of the beautiful Commonwealth, and I've heard your problems. I'm a surgeon, doctor. I listen to what you say, and I'm trying to help address them today. I've talked to seniors worried their Social Security checks wouldn't go far enough with the raging inflation. I've talked to couples want to make their first down payment on a new house, and they can't afford it anymore because of interest rates. I've talked to families.
Yeah, they also can't do that because private institutions are buying up property left and right.
Cut Social Security.
Mr. Fetterman, it's his turn for his closing.
I've talked to families worried about fentanyl showing up in
True.
their mailbox and
What a king.
literally taking the lives of their children who they find blue in bed. I've talked to families who won't let their kids go outside because of the crime wave that's been facilitated by left radical policies like the ones John Fetterman has been advocating for. But here's the deal, right? None of this has to happen.
I love when
This is all
politicians
very
are
personal. I'm a
unspecific.
surgeon. I'm not a
It's my
politician.
favorite thing.
We take big problems, we focus on them, and we fix them. We do it by uniting, by coming together, not dividing.
As a surgical team.
And by doing that, we can get ahead. But I've got one question to challenge you with, just one question. If you take what I'm saying to heart, ask yourself this and others in your family. Are you unhappy with where America's headed? I am. And if you are as well, then I'm the candidate for change. I'm a living embodiment of the American dream. I believe we're the land of opportunity, the land of plenty. I believe we can balance a budget without reckless spending. I believe we can have
boring.
an energy policy that helps us all. I believe that we can have safe city streets and a secure border so legal immigrants can come across, but you shut the fentanyl out. I believe we can give parents choice in where their kids go to school. We can have affordable health care. But most of all, I believe in you. And
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was saying like every possible good thing and being specific about absolutely nothing.
if you can do this together, and we can, I would ask for your vote on Election Day. God bless you.
We do have one final question, an important issue in Pennsylvania. The eyes of the state are on this debate tonight, but on Sunday they will be on Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. The state's two NFL
It's
teams.
gonna be.
Go
Yep,
head-to-head. Mr. Fetterman, Steelers or Eagles, and why?
What kind of question is that? Both of them can fucking rot. Fuck Steelers. I'm from outside DC.
Clearly,
Fuck
always
Eagles.
for the Steelers.
All my family's from Pennsylvania. They're obnoxious. Fuck Steelers. Fuck them all.
Gentlemen, thank you both so much. This does conclude our debate. We do want to thank...
Jesus Christ. Okay, so wow, that was not amazing. So overall thoughts. Fetterman's performance. I don't think quite as bad as has been I think communicated by a lot of people, especially on the left. I've been seeing a lot of catastrophizing about his performance. I think he did just okay and did not show nearly as much of the aggression as he's been showing in like his ads and like, you know, in other mediums. I think this was always going to be an uphill battle for him, being that it was like a very strict time limit on answers and kind of the rapid fire pace of it. I'm sure the stroke that he had a couple months ago or during the primaries, I should say, did not help with any of that. So overall, I didn't love a lot of his answers either. A lot of them were a bit wishy-washy, and obviously the fracking bit was just kind of outright lying. But yeah, overall, I mean, on a debate performance, I'd give this like a 6.5 maybe out of 10. Not amazing. I certainly it's the case where I think when you're this close to the election, you need to distinguish yourself, and you need to I think lean into an image or into a brand of who you are as a candidate. And I think Fetterman, for the most part, didn't do that very well. Oz, on the other hand, I think it was always kind of a foregone conclusion that he was going to perform well. He's been on TV for the last, decade and a half, 2 decades or some shit like that. So he was always going to perform well in this environment. But also, at least from my perspective, he didn't give most of his answers, obviously, I mentioned earlier, rather vague and unspecific, and a lot of gish galloping, a lot of throwing a million different things towards answers while not actually answering the question at hand. We can look specifically at his answer to college, the cost of college, and he never really answered the question. He kind of talked a little bit about prices, talked a little bit about trade schools, and then complained about student debt relief that Biden passed recently. So didn't really answer the question, but just said a bunch of vaguely tangentially related things. So overall, I mean, let's take a look. I'm kind of curious. Fetterman, Oz, polls. Where's the late? Give me. No, I don't care about that. I just want some polls. Here we go. 2020 polls. Let's see. General election. We were talking about Pennsylvania Senate, right? Yeah. So when was this conducted? Can I give it a date, please? Okay, so I don't have a date on this, so I don't love this. But generally, if you look, we're not gonna dive like super deep into this. But if you look, most of these are. This one's about 4 points. This is only 2. This is 6. Yeah, I mean he's got a. I want to know the latest polls. It's 538 have polls right now. Let's find out. 538. 538 polls. Here we go. Pennsylvania. Let's see. No, I want. Wait, what happened to my? I clicked. What happened to my Pennsylvania? Okay, there it is. Okay. Let's see. The latest one was conducted October 27th. Fetterman only up a point. Just under 2 points. So yeah, this is, if this is, I just realized I never transitioned back to my screen. I am so sorry. All right, let's take a look. So this is kind of what we're looking at in terms of polling. Fetterman as of the 27th. So this was actually today. This was pretty recently. So yeah, his lead. Let's go back about September. So yeah, since September, it is pretty much tightened. Yeah, it's tightened down to 2 points. So if you're looking at this from from the horse race, basically both these guys were about equal, and then Fetterman took the lead for a good while and is now tightening. This debate performance is probably going to make everybody. Hey there, Z Bauer. Thanks for joining. Welcome aboard. If you look at these, this is pretty much tightened, and this debate performance certainly isn't going to help. As the races, as election day has gotten closer, you don't want it to get you don't want the polls to get closer. And with this debate performance, I'd say it's only going to tighten a little bit more with this. We've only got, how many days? What, a week and some change? About a week. Yeah, a week and about, just a week and some change. Till election day. So in terms of his performance, I hate to say it, but he didn't do himself a lot of favors with this. If he had performed a lot better, I think we'd be having a different conversation, but he just didn't. He just didn't perform as well as he could have. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that. But yeah. Next, let's look at some reactions. I'm interested to see. When was this? This is a day ago, so this is pretty much after the debate. Let's kind of actually look at what voters are thinking about all of this. We saw kind of the polling as of today. It's just under 2 points, which is kind of a statistical tie. So it's a super toss-up. Again, the debate, if he performed well, it could have gone better, but let's take a look.
So let's go to the real people who are going to be voting in Philadelphia. We have Republican, Democrat, and Independent, all of whom were undecided before this debate, and they're very happy with themselves.
All right.
I'm happy to have them here. Let's start with Juliana. Juliana, do you hear me?
Juliana. A really nice name. I really like that name. I don't know why.
Hi, my name is Juliana. I
Hi.
am a conservative undergraduate student,
Oh dear,
and
those
I
eyes.
previously came into this very undecided
Okay.
due to the issue of abortion rights.
Uh-huh.
A major concern for me is the sanctity of human life, and I do believe that conception starts at, or that life starts.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely call bull on like the ideological alignment of people. You know, Americans are funny with their alignment, their self-reported alignment.
Starts at conception.
Uh-huh.
I do also want the least amount of government federal intervention in our public and private affairs as possible.
Okay.
But I also do believe that Oz is not mitigating the rights or beliefs of either side based on his opinion in the debate. So I believe that if people want to have the right to choose, I think that should apply to every opinion, regardless of if they agree with it or if they do not agree with it.
So who are you voting for?
That was incomprehensible. Okay. Oh, okay. So from what I got from that, homegirl believes that life starts at conception, but also thinks that government shouldn't be involved in those decisions. It sounds like she's just pro-choice. That's really just the pro-choice position. Is that you should be making that decision for your own. Some people believe life begins at conception. Some people don't. That's up to individuals to make that decision for themselves. And that's not a governmental decision. That government should have no say in that. Republicans will make the argument that government saying that you have your own choice is them saying everyone should get abortions. That's not the stance. But okay, that was a lot. Who are you voting for?
I'm voting for Oz.
Okay. And
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Juliana, just a quick follow, and then we'll go to somebody else. Does it bother you that he's changed his opinion? Yeah. That when he first started talking about reproductive rights, he talked about all the horrible outcomes that he had seen and how important it is that women have access to care and to be able to make these choices, and that as he's become more political, he's moved farther and farther to the right with where he is now. Does that bother you or make you question the integrity of the
position? It's only the standard thing people tend to do.
Honestly, it does not bother me. I think that everyone should be able to shift their opinion as new knowledge comes out and as they listen to other people. I mean, I've listened to both perspectives and I agree with both of them.
So I kind of agree with this in terms of like individuals, like if your cousin like evolves on an issue, but like when you're running for office, it's fairly obvious when you change your positions to garner more votes. Like that's just, especially when you're running in a party that had the opposite opinions of you and suddenly you share their opinions on stuff. That's pretty, like, at least to me, that belies quite a bit of dishonesty on Oz's part.
To an extent. So, you know, it's a
granted, I don't think he actually has opinions.
You know, as a
like,
of course, that's
like in my opinion, he just says
I
whatever he thinks will win him the election.
And probably should shift his opinion. Thank you.
Good argument. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
I don't know about a good argument.
It really is.
Next voter is Nadja. Nadja, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
How you doing?
So
Tell me about yourself.
And I'm a Democrat.
I would say so. Bauer, I would say I'm a child of not abortion. I'm a child of adoption, so I'm very pro adoption. I think our adoption processes should be absolutely stronger. There are how many kids in adoption services that have, you know, living in foster homes, living in orphanages and everything else. Yeah, I mean, look, late term abortion is a thing that happens for the most part due to complications in the pregnancy, and that's really, like, when it comes down to it, that's when people have their abortions. In Roe v. Wade, in the law that we had up until just recently, there were already restrictions on abortion up to a certain week. I believe it's 27, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, late term abortion was only allowed due to complications, and after 27 weeks, that was the only allowance for it. If not, then, you know, you had to figure out your sorts of thing. New York was 32. Yeah. And I think, when it comes to complications, that's something that we need to leave open. But I think before a fetus, at least personally, before a fetus is really viable outside of the womb, I think it's perfectly reasonable for people to make that decision for themselves. Unfortunately, the Republican Party wants to make it, what is it? Like 6 weeks. Most women don't even know they're pregnant until that time, which means they're virtually not giving them the choice to make that decision. And, at 6 weeks, I have a coworker right now who's pregnant. You would never know except that she feels sick. that she's pregnant. And, you know, to her, she, you know, immediately she thinks that's a baby, that's fine. But to me personally, if it can't live outside the womb, that's not life to me. Just because even in the Bible, they define like life as your first breath. And even when you have kids that are perfectly healthy, there's a reason why, you know, when doctors like tap their like backs or whatever, or I don't remember what the term is. But yeah, when they do that, they're clearing their airways. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes in the past, those children would be stillborn or wouldn't be able to breathe, their airways wouldn't open, whatever. So like, to me, it's, you know, and we have the technology now where we can fix that sort of thing. But I wouldn't argue, like some people might argue like, oh, well, you know, if their airway isn't open naturally, then like, you know, I mean, maybe it was God's will or something, some weird argument like that. And I think it's just like, whatever we can do feasibly as humans now with the advancement of our technology is what we should align our policy with.
I'm a mom
Oh my God.
of 3. I have a
The chair that I
podcast,
sit in is like,
yeah.
you
I'm
guys
here.
can't see it, but the chair that I sit in is like made of fabric. Oh my God, my like fucking thighs are killing me. It's so hot. Even though I'm sitting in a cold room, it's awful. Go back. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I just wanted to complain to somebody.
What do you think now after the debate?
I'm definitely
Nice
I'm
relay,
definitely erring on the
CNN.
side of Fetterman. I thought it was really brave of him to come out there dealing with what he's dealing with. My grandma had 2 strokes, and she can
Jesus.
still make amazing mac and cheese.
Yo,
I think it's
fucking
important
mac
that
and
we see
cheese by
people
people with
in their
melanin
human state,
in their
because
skin.
that is the
Fucking
human way
amazing.
to have struggles, your own struggles. So I really felt what he was going through.
All right, we got one now.
I felt like that was probably the best choice for me.
So you believe what is in his head and in his heart is intact, and the way he was speaking is just a function of what he's dealing with, and that's acceptable to you?
Oh, yes, because there's therapy. Lots of it.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com.
Is that it, guys? You had 3 minutes and 42 seconds. We got 2 voters. All right, let's see if we can find some better reactions. Oh wait, actually no. What is it? What's the thing where they like talk to a bunch of people after debates and shit? What's the word? It's not surveys. It's like focus groups. Focus group. Fuck me, I can't type. Group. Oz Fetterman. New York law is kind of scary if the baby somehow survived it. Doctor has to put it on the table. I'm not sure what law. If you have like a some link or something you can send me, I'll absolutely read it. I'd be interested. This is 6 days ago. Do we not have? Is that the closest thing we have to? Man, what's the hell? Let's see. Pennsylvania swing. Wait. No, this is 8 days ago. We just watched that. Pennsylvania spine remarks. No, nah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think we've gotten any good focus groups. Well, let's see if we can. Oh, probably would help if I put Oz, wouldn't it? Debate. Yep, nope. Nothing. Let's see. Maybe somebody. Okay, it might not be on YouTube, but let's see. Talking about Herschel Walker. That'd be. So we didn't watch their debate on stream, but I also think that did not go well. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, we got something. NBC. Phantom's performance felt very difficult to watch. Cool. Give me. I'll literally take anything. For the content, as much as I hate Fox News. Come on. I believe in you, Fox News, as shitty as you are. Yeah, that's actually a good question. Let's take a look. I'm kind of curious.
I think it was very difficult to watch. You know, I kind of felt sorry for him out there. Of course, like he had a stroke and he's suffering, and his doctors say that, you know, he's fit to serve. But I had a hard time comprehending what he was trying to, convey.
Not wrong.
Almost, bad for John Fetterman. I think there's no question that his social media campaign has been very sharp and good and appealing. But when he got on the debate stage, I couldn't really understand a lot of the points he was making. And on the other side, I thought Oz looked pretty sharp. I think sounded like a politician. And I don't know that.
I find it really weird because, like, most Americans would tell you they don't like when people sound like politicians or when they think people are like act like politicians, but then you hear stuff like this. Like, it's always weird to me.
Fetterman was really able to convey many of his positions on issues.
I have a background in the military as a medic and saw many people suffer traumatic brain injuries. So I keep that in mind as I am, viewing what Fetterman is going through. He's healing, and I don't think we would hold that against anybody else if they had a broken arm and they were healing. So he's on his road to recovery, and we kind of have to keep that in mind. It's the human side of him.
Is there something Fetterman can do to reassure you?
I think it's doubtful.
Yeah, I think that's catastrophizing. Disaster is not how I would have characterized that. It's certainly, again, we looked at the polls earlier. It like in a race where it could have really, I think, kind of, because as we'll just look at it right now. We're gonna look at it right now anyway. In a race that I think could have been over, or at the very least could have been a little more secure. This is as of today. Hey. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. I'm stupid. There we go. In a race where this could have been a lot closer. Let me scroll down. You guys can see. In a race where this could have been, 1.9 is your difference here. A good debate performance could have swung this back to like a plus, a +4, +3. I mean, look, guys, on the 21st, a week ago, a little bit, 6 days ago, not a week, not quite a week. Fuck it, 20th, 4.4. This shrunk from 4.4 and cut in half down to 2. So a little bit less than half, technically. So yeah, I mean, this debate was not great. This could have been a finishing blow, but it wasn't. Let's take a look at Georgia, since Bauer mentioned. What was the high? For Pennsylvania, it was pretty high at a point. The high looks like 10 back in, September 15th? A little bit over a month ago? So, to lose to a month ago being around 10 points up. Yeah, I think that's as high as it went. It was about 10.2, right? Oh, wait. 10.7. That doesn't look higher than that. Oh, that's why. Okay, yeah. So a 10.7 gap was the biggest gap in between them. To come all the way down to 1.9, that's not good. That's not good at all. Yeah, and like I said, that debate performance, I don't think would have sent it back up to 10, but could have pushed it more into 4 above, favoring Fetterman. But I'm assuming that Hosho meant Herschel Walker. This has been generally tight, which not great. I watched that off. I watched that on my own time off stream, and the Warnock debate was mostly bad. I think mostly bad because they didn't take Herschel Walker seriously. Because again, when you go up against these guys who've been on TV, who've been public figures for a long time in more of a casual setting, when you go up against these guys are well media trained and used to being in front of that camera. So they're good at putting on that front and putting on that mask that'll kind of hide some of those flaws during like one-on-one interviews that they'll have. But like Warnock and Walker, 1.7, super close. I'd say it's pretty much a coin toss. Said New York governor. That's NV. That's not New York. Let's see. Governor of New York. Let's take a look. Oh, that's what you meant. Oh, that's over. That's pretty over. I'm not super familiar with this race, but that's over. That's over. That's game. Wrap that one up. Yeah, Nevada. Who is this? This isn't Cortez Masto. Oh yeah. Oh Jesus Christ. That's not great either, especially since he's gained a lot more. Honestly, if you ask me, Nevada's going red. Who's this? JD Vance. Oh, Vance's debate performance was not great either, but that doesn't seem to have affected him because that happened quite a bit ago. So I'd say, admittedly, I think JD Vance might have this one. So for at least Nevada and Ohio, I think they've got it. Georgia, I think Warnock will be able to pull it off. I think, if I'm making like just a hard prediction. Pennsylvania, I think Fetterman will squeeze by, but not by much. North Carolina. That's not North Carolina. Did I not pick North Carolina? What was this? That's Nevada. North Carolina, please. North Carolina. That's probably over. I don't see that swinging. That's probably over. North Carolina. Yeah. I would guess that's over. They will go red. You think so? I'm not super familiar with New York politics. I've been to New York. I don't think I've been to New York since like the towers were still standing. So I'm not super familiar with. Oh my god, this is awful. Who the fuck? Oh, for Wisconsin? Oh Jesus, that's over. No, that's not completely over. But actually, well, they don't have a lot of time, so that might be over too. Jesus. What's the? Let's see. Let's see. What's the U.S. Senate people? Oh, nope, not that. I don't want that. Can I get like a countrywide one? Is there like a? I know 538 does like. How much power do Christians really have? Probably too much. Senate forecast. Let's see. Republicans win 58 and 100. Democrats win 52 and 100. Oh, Jesus. I think. Yeah, I don't. Because, yeah, when Democrats have 50 seats each control. Oh my god. Yeah, this is fairly grim. Yeah. I think the red wave is pretty evident, I think. Let's see. Forecasting eats, let's see. Yeah, that's pretty toss up. If I had to guess, honest to God, I'd say red for Nevada. I think it's okay. Red for Nevada, blue for Arizona. Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to look at the house. I feel like I'm gonna cry if I look at the house. Yeah, red for. I think red for Nevada, blue for Arizona, Colorado. Yeah. Oh, 52-44. Yeah, that's over. I live in Colorado, so I've seen a lot of Joe O'Dea. Is, as much as I dislike Michael Bennett, I think he's a piece of shit, corrupt politician. John O'Dea is not. I know they have Arizona as a toss-up. I think, considering, what is it, 50, considering 50-47, and you've got, I'm assuming that yellow number is, oh, that's okay. Really depends on who he's pulling from, but I'd say that's fairly likely. That's pretty safe blue. I think that's going to end up going blue, eking blue out. Pennsylvania, I think will eke blue, but barely. New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan. Oh no, I think that's pretty likely. I think, yeah, that's this. Georgia's, oh god, Georgia makes me scared. I hesitate to say Georgia's going. Is Warnock's gonna lose, but I don't. I think there's a good chance he loses. I do think I think there's a good chance. Yeah, I guess let's look at this. Oh, why did I pick this? Jesus. Oh my god. Ugh. I'm kind of curious. Where's Colorado? Where's my state? God, what the let's see. I'm not 100% sure. You might. Oh, Jesus. Jeez. Oh. Because what? Yeah, okay. Boebert's winning hers. I think that's. Did I see the? No, I saw. No. Did I see? Well, no. I've seen Adam. Say it again. What is it? Adam. Risch. Whoops. Adam. Frisch. It's the guy I'm thinking. Oh, fuck yeah. No, I'm just no. We're just gonna. No, that. Good luck, man. That was never gonna happen. Let's see. No idea who the fuck you are. 5th district. Ay. Ugh. This is for Denver. 99-1. Yeah, I mean, to get kind of sucks, but yeah, it'll be best case scenario. It's the at least for Colorado, the representation will be split 4-4. So, oh god, this looks awful. Current house. Jesus. New York 26 is mine. Where are you? Let's see. 25th? Oh, is that 26? No. Wow. Way to go. Oh, okay. Well, looks like yours isn't very competitive either in your district. Where's 26? What part of New York is that? Like upstate in the city? I don't know New York super well. Again, I haven't been there since the towers were still standing, but oof, Jesus. Well, it's gonna be a day. Ay. Well, anyway, yeah, so today I'm glad we stuck with just the Fetterman. I'm glad we stuck with just the Fetterman Oz debate. Oh shit, now I'm near Buffalo. Okay. I have a bunch of my coworkers from Rochester. Again, I have no idea how close that is, but anyway, oh my god, wow, Democrats. So yeah, fucked in the House, and you know, this is the unfortunate thing. Democrats, if Democrats in the Senate, because they're so split, they basically can't do anything because they have people in their party who are conservatives and should probably be more representative of the Republican Party. And you know, if Republicans take a 50, if it's a 50 split, 50-50 split, or a 51 split for Republicans, that's it. Like they will pass, you know, they'll pass whatever legislation they can, and they'll do everything that they can. So oh my god, you know, it's funny you mentioned garbage plates. One of my coworkers, or the boss of one of the I work in a food truck. The guy who co-owns it wants to start like a garbage plate restaurant, like a late night garbage plate spot out in Lakewood. It's like in one of the metro areas of Colorado. I've never had it. Admittedly, it looks pretty gross because I don't really like beans or hot dogs all that much. But yeah, no, I'm well aware of garbage plates. That I am aware of, and I'm. It doesn't sound like the greatest thing to eat, in my opinion. Not something I would choose to eat, but you know, that's what they want to do. They're from Rochester. They want to do garbage plates. I'm good. But yeah, the debate, not great. Not great at all. We'll kind of see. I think it's likely. It's a foregone conclusion. Republicans are taking the House. In terms of the Senate, there are a few toss-ups. I think specifically in Oz. In the hey Barm, welcome aboard. Glad to have you here. I think in terms of Oz, it's in terms of Oz Fetterman, I think Fetterman edges it, but not by much. That's if I'm making like hard predictions. Fetterman edges it in Pennsylvania. I think Warnock edges it in Georgia. Nevada, we looked at the races briefly. I don't know the people, but looking at those numbers, I think the Republicans going to win in Nevada. Arizona, I think will go blue. They had a pretty okay enough lead. But yeah, so it'll be the second half of Biden's administration is going to be rough. Basically, I think his administration is basically over. There's not really a whole lot he's going to be able to pass anymore except through executive order. We have the midterms coming up very soon. What they start basically next year is when good question. Let's find out. When do the Republican midterms begin? Republican midterms begin. Let's see. I'm super curious. One second. I'm gonna make sure you guys can see. It's not. There it is. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. I'm kind of curious. When do? Oh no. Sorry, not midterms. I'm stupid. Primary. The primaries are gonna begin soon. Let's see. No, I don't really want polls. No. I don't want. Oh, actually, let's glance at polls really quickly. Trump DeSantis, DeSantis Pence, Trump DeSantis. I don't get. So I've been hearing a lot that like DeSantis is like gonna be challenging Trump. I don't know what kind of challenge this is gonna look like. This is. There isn't a single one of these so far. Let's see. Trump DeSantis, fucking Trump DeSantis, Pence, Trump DeSantis. Yeah, I'm sorry. You couldn't convince me that Trump would ever lose to DeSantis. Like you couldn't convince me. There's nothing you could do to convince me of that one. But anyway, Trump will win. I don't know. I think he'll run. I do think he'll run. It'll really come down to like the investigations that are going on into January 6th and how those play out. I do think he's going to end up running. But we'll kind of see. I think if he runs, he's winning his primary. There's almost no question about that. So yeah, Republicans poised very well to gain all branches of government again in 24, which is not good in my opinion. But God. What tangled webs we weave. Anyway, so yeah, that's gonna be it for today. We did one thing for a really, really fucking long time. DeSantis will kill Pence, Trump will kill DeSantis. That's kind of that's kind of how this will work. Either it's Trump versus DeSantis or DeSantis versus Pence. It's it is what it is. Trump's winning a primary if he runs in one. But anyway, we can be here all day. Z Bauer, appreciate you. Glad you're here. Glad you came aboard. Anybody else, please tell your friends, tell your wives, tell your kids, tell your family members. If you like the stream, if you haven't already, I would really appreciate a follow. I hope I've earned anybody else's follow who's been here. But yeah, spread the word. I've been starting, this kind of started up a few weeks ago. I've been really enjoying it. I'm on a generally every other week, depending on my situation. It's a bit random, so obviously follow so you'll see whenever I go live, stuff like that. Do all the all the spiel that content creators all say. But either way, you all have a lovely Thursday. If you're playing tonight, and this is where my Gamer Bro will come in, but Call of Duty is going to be coming tonight, the multiplayer, so can't wait to get that started. I'm very excited, but otherwise, you all have fun doing whatever it is you do with your nights. That's what I'm going to be doing. But bye-bye.